Hi, I'm Nate Flax.
I'm Noah Longworth McGuire.
And this is Talking Lion.
Talking Lion is a podcast focused on artist-to-artist conversations.
We're primarily artists, a duo called Sleeping Lion. And throughout our career as songwriters and producers, we've had the opportunity to work with so many incredible rising artists.
Talking Lion is about hitting record on the conversations we've had with our musical friends and collaborators to get a glimpse into what their life's been like and where it's going.
A few reminders before we start.
Firstly, we now have a Patreon for fans of the show to show their support and help keep the show going.
As a Patreon subscriber, not only will you earn rewards, but you'll also gain exclusive access to a chat room in our Discord server.
Here you can talk with us and even suggest questions for our guests.
Go to patreon.com/talkinglion to subscribe.
We appreciate your support.
As we mentioned, we also have a Discord server that's become a sort of community hub for Sleeping Lion and Talking Lion. We're very active on there and very eager to talk to you about who you are on the show and how you feel about the new episodes, as well as just talking about life.
So yeah, come through and you can talk with us. You can make some new friends, share your art, and share your memes.
Go to sleepinglionmusic.com/discord to join our server.
We hope to see you there.
Quick announcement. You can now vote for Talking Lion for the 16th Annual People's Choice Podcast Awards.
Your vote could get us nominated, and we can even win an award for this show.
Your support and that recognition would mean the world to us. So please go to podcastawards.com to vote for Talking Lion in the music category. Lastly, our face is on a shirt. We have shirts now for Talking Lion with our faces on them. If you want to wear us on your shirt, buy a shirt. It helps support the show, and it shows your friends that you like Sleeping Lion and Talking Lion.
You can find these shirts on our website, sleepinglionmusic.com/store. Pro tip. Patreon supporters of the honorary Lion tier or higher will get a free shirt.
Now back to the show.
We recorded this episode with our new friend Flatsound.
We first found Flatsound through our mutual friend Meg Meyer. She was a fan of his podcast, All the Space in Between, which he co-hosts with his partner Billy Blossom.
We recorded this earlier this year following the release of his ambient album, Somewhere in the Distance, Somewhere Towards the Mountains. Since then, he has recently released a single called Fairy Tales Tell Tales.
Flatsound has been making unique and authentic music on his terms for over a decade now. And this interview runs long because we really get into the weeds of how to have a sustainable, long-term career in music. For anybody who's trying to make a living while building an artistic foundation on your terms, this is the interview for you. So,
without further ado,
I'm Flatsound, and this is Talking Lion.
well, hey.
hello, hello.
Howdy, howdy.
It's nice to meet you. We had an exceptionally good pre-podcast chat, so I'm trying to like glean that into this new podcast then. But the thing that I've gathered is that we are very much cut from the same audio nerd podcast music cloth.
Yeah, we went on for probably too long about effect chains and quality and how to get the best sound out of a podcast and all that stuff. So it's probably good we talked about that before the actual show, because I don't think anyone else would really give a shit.
I mean, the podcast could have been a half-hour intro of just us talking about like various mics.
If anything, I think the inspiration that this has struck in me is that the three of us should start a podcast about podcasts.
I would love a second podcast, possibly a third podcast if you want to break
Possibly
off
a third. Why not? The more the merrier.
into some other shit after that. Yeah, of course.
Well, it's the MCU. Well, the MPU, the Mitch Podcast Universe.
There you go. That's great.
Thank you. Weren't you just complimenting my puns earlier today?
I was. Yeah. That was a different person. I don't know who that was.
Yeah, you know, that was a different time.
Do you know that your cells regenerate every 4 seconds?
I've heard that.
Yeah, exactly.
You're a new person
every 4 seconds. That's a true science fact that I just read.
I feel like a new. Oh, hey, how you doing?
Oh, hey.
Every 4 seconds.
Nice to meet you.
Hey, guys. Yeah. I'm Flatsound. This is whatever the show's called again.
No, you nailed the intro. I was really, really impressed by it. Well, it is exciting, though, because you are the first artist that we've had on Talking Lion who also has their own podcast.
Yeah.
Which, for me, feels like a really logical progression. I know, like, MXM Tune is starting to do it, and, like...
Verite has a podcast.
Like, artists are starting to do podcasts. But, you know, I think that, like... because we wind up having interesting conversations about art and music and life, whatever, it's a logical progression. But your podcast is spanning an ocean. How did all the space between kind of like come about?
My partner and I, we didn't really start off in a long distance relationship. We kind of fell into a long distance relationship. She's from London, and when we got together, she's an artist, and we would spend lots and lots and lots of time together. But we were very used to long spans of her eventually having to go home every 3 months, you know? So we knew jumping in, if we start a podcast, there's going to be at least a little bit of time before you move here permanently that we have to podcast with you gone. And we wanted to kind of, you know, and this is like pre-COVID. This is prior to everybody having a podcast that was just a recorded Zoom call or something, you know? So we knew we wanted to do it better, and we wanted to have a seamless transition from when she was home to when she was not. And I loved hearing our listeners be like, I couldn't even tell she's in London right now. We're like, we fucking nailed it. Let's go. So yeah, we always kind of knew, I mean, from like the name of the show, All the Space in Between, it was a reference to us being in a long distance relationship and us being completely on different sides of the world, as well as the podcast not really having any sort of topic. It goes from giving relationship advice to giving art advice, because we're both artists for a living, and we talk about everything, you know?
Well, it's awesome, and from what we listened to it, I didn't want to be like the first thing that I texted you, but it is like adorable. Like you hear the heart, the heart, you know, the
She's
heart.
She's gonna love
in
hearing that. Yeah.
Well, she's awesome. You guys have obviously like a very great, like, you know, it's one thing to have like great relationship chemistry, but I think having podcast chemistry is an entirely different beast. So to have both, I think is really, really cool. And of course, just the commitment to audio quality. We were lucky in our first season that we did some interviews with friends of ours who were in like Ireland and Australia and whatnot. So like we had the remote thing down just as like, oh, this is a good way for us to not just have to interview LA artists, but we could do, you know, anybody. And then COVID hit, and we were like, okay, so we just do it like that then.
Yeah, we already had the infrastructure in place, and just they were like, this is the new normal. Like, let's go.
But I loved how when COVID hit, though, it was like we just saw a dramatic decline in everybody's podcast quality except ours. And I'd like to just give us a round of applause for that one. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
That was very cool of us to continue our audio quality, even though the world shut down.
There was an app that you mentioned that I hadn't heard of, but you know, maybe anybody listening who is struggling with the quality of their audio. What's the name of that app you were talking about?
It was called Clean Feed, and I think it might just be cleanfeed.com, cleanfeed.net maybe, or maybe just Google Clean Feed. And I actually learned about
cleanfeed.gov.
That's it. That's the one. Yeah, it's like cleanfeed.horse somehow. It's the only one they could afford. But the
cleanfeed.epa, yeah.
It's called Clean Feed because it's actually recording the direct feed of your audio source, instead of just like when you record a Zoom call, it's recording the call. When you record a Skype call, it's recording the audio of a Skype call. So it's your audio running through that software, but on Clean Feed, it's just recording your source audio, and then it just kind of meshes them together. And I think that would dramatically help many people's podcasts who are just recording Zoom calls, you know?
Well, I think, you know, people don't know this about ours, but like how we do Talking Lion is just we set up a mic on our end, the artist sets up a mic on their end, and then like in Pro Tools later, I put them all together and sync them up, so it sounds like we're at least in the same room together. Right. Obviously, it relies on the artist having enough microphone savviness. Though even we've had some people do like, you know, a voice memo on their side, and even that would sound better than a Zoom call. No, listen, I get it, but like, you know, but here's the thing: that was one artist of like, you know, the last 20 or 30 we've done.
For the most part, everyone's got a mic.
Most people have
most of the people who are interviewing are vocalists. Like that's the nice, easy crossover.
Right. It's just a workaround. Like I'd rather have somebody setting up just any mic on their end as opposed to just trying to make heads or tails of the whole thing. I mean, mind you, I would rather people don't do that, because like a not insignificant amount of work I've had in the pandemic is cleaning up Zoom podcast stuff.
Right.
So if you guys want to keep making that mistake, happy to pay me for it. But like, but yeah, if anybody's curious about how to do podcasting audio just like slightly better, here's where you can make your improvements. You know, I think it's funny kind of how we met. I mean, this is the first time we're like talking,
right?
You know, and which I'm almost sad about. I feel like if we had met 3 years ago, my life would have been better, because I would have known that there are other people with broken brains.
Right, exactly.
Ours.
Right. The moment we started talking, we actually started talking. Like I knew that we were recording the podcast this way. I was like, oh, thank God. Like, oh my God. Okay, cool. Like, and then we started talking about specific plugins and how in effect chains and stuff. And I was just like, where have you been? We only live like less than an hour away from one another too. So that's crazy.
Right. Oh, that's really funny.
Well, you know, in safer times, you're welcome by whenever. I think also too, like, your brain is somewhere directly between Noah and I, like Noah and mine, because Noah has always been about quality and like understanding how to get quality out of audio, and he's the one who will do the mic shootouts and all that stuff.
Mhm.
For me, where my brain is I'm incapable of doing anything without assigning some sort of commercial value to it.
Right.
And I think that we were talking about that too before we started recording, which is like, I play a ton of Overwatch and I'm up until 3 a.m, like playing chess on chess.com, which if anybody wants to play me, Chessing.
Oh my God.
Chessing Lion. That's the name.
We're going to roll out our first
Chessing
sponsor.
Lion
It's
is that.
chess.com. Yeah.
It's chess.com. Yeah. But, the first thing that my brain goes to is like, can we Twitch this? Like, can we find some way of like getting some sort of commercial value out of like Overwatch and chess? So it's definitely we appreciate you as all.
Yeah, no, I feel like you two are, if just two of my major personality types split up into two people in front of me to the point where I don't actually think I'm having a call with anybody. I think I've actually just gone insane. And now
I feel that way
this
often.
is just it right here, because I too I'm just like, I'm constantly thinking like, okay, I'm in the merch room filling merch orders all the time. What if I set up a stream for that so I could do that on Twitch so I can make money while I make money?
That is some four-dimensional chess right there.
That's incredible.
I love that.
And
what's your chess.com name?
Yeah, really. I even like set up the room as a stream room and then never did it. I have like there's like still like lights behind me and cool stuff, and it all looks good. And we did like test streams and stuff, and at the end of it I was like, I don't want to fucking do this. Why would I want to do this? Like, I'm filling merch orders. I just want to listen to a podcast, not talk to anybody. Like, I don't want to have to be on there speaking to people while I'm filling merch orders. It's a lucrative idea. It's cool. And if I had enough energy or time, I could possibly do it. But and it's all completely set up. I bought like cameras for it and everything. I bought lights for it. There's it looked great, and it would have
But I think there's also something liberating in acknowledging that you don't have to monetize everything you do. I think that that's like just one of the things we go through as these kind of multifaceted artists, that the impulse is always there. But I think that there's also immense power in recognizing that, like you can even go so far as to buy all the stuff and set it up, and then you can let your hands off the reins and be a little bit nicer to yourself and be like, I already am monetizing so many of my artistic talents. I don't have to.
But here's like, that is extremely easy, I think, for you to say, because that the voice to commercialize for you is like a nice, calm, like, hey, have you thought about maybe like monetizing this creative aspect of yourself? For me, I wake up to somebody screaming, have you monetized this yet? Have you found some value for the art you're making? That whole thing clipped, by the way, and I'm going to keep it clipping. That's just
that's what I said.
We'll leave it in there for effect. It'll be a distorted effect. Yeah. You have to feel how angry you are.
That's the thing, is like that Noah's
so if anything, this advice is more for you than it is for me. That sounds like a problem. That sounds like something you should talk about in therapy.
Oh, well, quick question: is your voice like a nice, calm person, or does your voice have a vaguely English accent that screams in your ear when you wake up?
My voice is definitely the voice to make money. Is it's there, but it's not loud at all. I'm always kind of actively doing things to not make money somehow. Like I'm always working on things that are unprofitable and are more artistic, and I have no idea why. I guess just because I'm so grateful for the amount of money that I make already, that I'm not struggling to pay for food anymore. So I'm just like, I don't have to do this. So why would I do that? I would rather just have a more laid back life, play more video games, and continue having Spotify pay my rent, and it's cool. But the voice is definitely there, and it needs to be turned up. It needs to be louder. It needs to be a much louder voice. Especially I'm 30 years old now, so I'm thinking about being in my 30s, and I'm just I'd like to buy a house one day, wouldn't I? And I guess I'd like all this other shit in life. I would like for Billy and I to have like nice things, and I want financial security. I didn't have that growing up. I wanna continue to have those things. So that voice is not as loud as the voice that's just saying, make this pointless art. And it's like, why? It's because I said so. And then hide it on your website so no one will find it. Put it in a hidden link that no one will find. Maybe 3 people will find it, and it's like, that's completely inaccessible, and then no one will even see it. And it's like, but you did it, and that would be cool.
Well, and I also grew up like my dad did a good job of sort of like hiding it, but we were never in a place of like full capital FS financial security. And it's not because of this, but they were both creatives. Like my mom was in like theater and my dad was in music.
That's so
both
cool.
wound up like my dad moved more towards like business coaching, and my mom moved towards like academics, like teaching, after school programs. And again, we were fine, but there was definitely, especially around the recession, the feeling like it could all go up, all be a mess at any point. If we watched one too many movies in the theaters or like ate sushi,
of course,
3 times a month or whatever. So, I always kind of felt this like pressure of like, oh, if I am going to do the art thing, it's got to make more money than if I were to actually like apply for a structured job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That sounds like such a boring thing to some people, but like Billy and I will give that advice on the podcast all the time. It'll just be a person saying like, I want to put everything I have into my art and throw everything away to try and pursue it. But at the same time, I could take this job and be paid 3 times more than I ever have. And we're like, oh my God, take the job. Take the fucking job. Art is you're probably not going to make it realistically, but you could still try while you have the job. Try on the weekends, but financial security, especially now, we live in a capitalistic society. Like, take the fucking job.
Yeah, there's no nobility in being a starving artist anymore because there are so many artists who know how to not starve. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's like something that I really, really took to heart, which was that what I like about my job now is that if I have a good idea, very oftentimes like I can be rewarded for it. Mm-hmm. But that it took a long time and a decent amount of credit card debt to get to the point where those ideas meant anything. And I don't know how much of this I would have recommended. I think that I was just also bad at looking for work. Like I didn't like the resume cover letter process.
I have up to this point in my adult life never really had to make a resume. Like I made one to try to apply for a sync internship when I was like 17 or 18, like out of college, and I didn't end up getting the internship. Like I've made resumes, but I've never, as an adult, actually, like I've never written a cover letter. I've still to this point never written a cover letter.
I'm the same way.
I've been so blessed that I've been able to live my life thus far without truly having to veer into any kind of corporate structure. And I intend on keeping it that way because at this point I've put all my eggs in that basket.
Exactly. Like what the fuck are you going to do?
At this point I'm 24 and I don't have work experience. Mm-hmm. And the process of condensing, like I feel like I'm incredibly qualified for a lot of jobs.
Well, actually, it was really, really inspiring. I got a job, somebody sent me a job offer for like a listing, not the offer, but somebody sent me a job listing for like the audio department of like a newspaper company.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, I'm extremely qualified for this, and I'm not going to apply for it.
No, exactly. I think that there's just something about, and I think for me it's also that I put all my eggs in this basket, that the effort it would take for me to change the course of my life has mounted to such a degree that at this point being an artist is the path of least resistance.
Right, exactly.
Like being an artist and doing art for a living is the path of least resistance for me, which I think is beautiful, but it's also kind of terrifying, especially in COVID when like financial stability really got like the rug got pulled out from under us. I was like, I don't really have another option. I just got to keep making this work.
I feel so lucky all the time because I have friends in music. The closest thing I had to a manager for a long time, who actually just recently became my manager. We give it up for Zach for becoming my manager.
For Zach, thank you, Zach, for not having us have to go through you first.
Exactly. No, he's laid back, but it's Zach Zarillo. He ran a website called Property of Zach years ago. Got kind of known for that, and then now most notably runs just 1,000 different businesses. My little Zach friend. He has like a donut shop, and he's the manager to Robbie from Cavetown. He got Nothing Nowhere signed to a major. He got Robbie signed to a major. He knows I don't want anything like that, but I recently reached out to him being like, I love you for still wanting to work with me, considering you've outgrown me a lot. Like, thank you for still helping me with so much stuff. Are you still interested in taking on like a more managerial role? He was the one who recently, or who first told me once lockdown happened, he's like, get ready to take like 10 or 15% hit to your streams. And I was like, what? Everyone's at home. Everyone's listening to music. What are you talking about? He's like, nobody's commuting. Nobody's going to work. Nobody's going to school. That's when people are listening to music and podcasts, So artists are taking a hit already. We're thinking it's going to be about 10 or 15%. And I was like, okay. And I never took a hit and have just been going up steadily since then. And now my plays currently knock on wood, are higher than they've ever been. But I'm also not like a touring artist, and I didn't rely on like playing shows. I didn't rely on anything
We weren't
like
either,
that.
yeah.
So, but all of my friends that were like, what the fuck are they going to do? Like, what are they going to, because we're not going to start playing shows anytime soon. And we've already gone a whole year without them. Like, that sucks. That's horrible. That's completely life-changing, you know?
Yeah, I think that one of the reasons why I'm always so eager to like try to monetize creative stuff is because I think one of the differences between your project and our project is like Flatsound is creatively like a little bit to the left to center, but like you have an audience and that can be like the revenue train. For us, the actual Sleeping Lion project wouldn't be like our actual creative endeavor isn't enough to float us. So we lean on our technical skills in podcasting, film, production, writing, etc., to be able to, and so we were saying before, when we in the sort of preamble that people think that it's a binary, like you either don't make money from music or you make money from music, but it's actually trinary, where it's you're not making money from music, you're making money from music, and then you're making money from your music.
Right, exactly. The interesting thing about that too is that wherever you land in any one of those, if you're making money, it's so important to diversify your income. Because if I relied solely on shows and then the pandemic hit, I would have been fucked. Or if I were relying completely off of Spotify streams, and then something were to happen with Spotify, something were to happen, not just the plays going away, but if they just like woke up one day and said, hey, it's completely different now, that would also completely go away from me, Yeah, if those all went away, I would be completely fucked too. It's so important for people to not just run one thing, especially if you're going to do something creative as a living. I want to give myself more job security than if I had like a traditional job. It's something that even my my dad used to say all the time, is that him and like a whole bunch of people in my life, they were so loving, but they also very much kind of lived with this assumption that because I did something creative for a living, that it could all just go away tomorrow. And that's not necessarily true, especially if I feel very safe making the money that I am on Spotify, especially because they pay you 3 months later based off of the streams that you got. This is an entire season prior. So I know the money I know the paycheck I'm going to get 3 months in advance. And I can, if I needed to, I can adjust my life to that. If the plays took a huge dip, I'm just, okay, let's start running merch. I have a 3-month head start on when that dip is going to happen. It feels like the most secure place I could be in. And it's a hell of a lot more secure than friends that I have that are working traditional jobs.
I feel that wholeheartedly, because I know, if we have a slow month, I can call up all of my friends in film or, clients that we worked with and we haven't worked with for like a year or two, and just sort of check in and say, hey, do you have a project? And more often than not, they're like, oh yeah, we do have a project. And I hadn't really thought to call because I assumed you were busy or, it just didn't cross my mind, like, because you're not in New York anymore, whatever. So, I feel like that's what I really, really love about the job. When I dropped out of college, my grandfather called. My grandfather did very well for himself. And so when I dropped out of college, he called me. And I dropped out because I was getting really good film work. We just got on our first Spotify playlist. I'd gotten some like advice from Halsey. Like there had been reasons why I wanted to drop out and just start my life in LA. And he called me and he said, like, don't you want to live like me? Like, don't you want to have a nice house and travel the world and like, be financially secure? And I was like, yeah, that's why I'm leaving. Like I'm leaving because I see a path where we can be like stable. And I love the idea that like, with Sync, you're just one lottery ticket away from not like, being a millionaire or whatever,
but being
just
hundreds of thousands of dollars there, of course.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And because we knew how to stretch $500, like the moment that we don't have to stretch something, I'm like, oh, I know exactly how much money I need to not have to worry for 3 years or for 4 years or like
and
whatever.
It's not that much.
It's not that much either. Yeah. But also, I think what's really, really exciting is, as far as diversifying goes, is our job isn't that we're musicians or podcasters or whatever. Our jobs are to be creatives and to always just keep an eye out for ways in which shifts in the world align with how we view things. Like I'm very much convinced, and maybe it's crazy, but it's also what keeps me up at night and also wakes me up in the morning. Like, it's what I'm most anxious and most excited about. But I think that like in my lifetime, I'm very confident I'm going to make $1 million from something that doesn't exist yet.
Wow.
Like I feel in my gut and soul that like we are learning the tools to be able to adapt and to be able to like adjust to, changes in markets and whatever for things that are going to come out in 5 years or 10 years. So people who have made like $1 million off of TikTok, like that, like, did they think that was going to happen 5 years beforehand?
No.
No.
There's no way.
But they got very good at writing quickly. They got good at video editing. They, spent years doing choreography in preparation of something. And so whenever I sort of feel down about this time, I know that we're diversifying so that we can be aligned with something that makes commercial sense whenever it comes out.
Yeah.
Right. If
not whatever we're doing right now.
Yeah. No, you've already shared like at least at least a couple ideas with me when we were talking before that were just unique, haven't been done yet things, which I'm stealing, by the way. I've already written.
Oh, great.
Down.
No, listen, if you're referring to that one thing, we need as many people as possible on that. I'm not just looking to change legal language. I'm looking for a class action lawsuit.
Wow. That's dope. Honestly, it's so ambitious. It's more ambitious than I've ever been about anything like other than art, because I am really ambitious when it comes to my art, but I need help with everything else. Like God, just like the amount of people that have, like you mentioned, even just having that initial stage of just getting into like credit card debt and these like learning experiences that we have and stuff. I am in so much debt with the IRS. That is a huge learning experience for me.
Right.
So much debt because I had no money for so long, and then suddenly I had some money all at once, and then for a couple years I thought this is great, and then the IRS was like, no, it's not. And then since then it was a stumble after a stumble after a stumble. This year is like this. I'm so happy, but it's the first year that I'm actually seeing that like it's a large amount of money. Not compared to even just like, student loans. It's not like $100,000 or anything, but it's a sizable amount of money. And this is the first year that I'm actually thinking like, I could pay that off. Like I can actually pay that off. And then for the first time, since like 2014, I can actually be, making money, because before I was just always in debt. Learning experiences like that are essential, are good.
I've always thought of, and actually, I've always felt this in my stomach, but actually finally verbalized it. I used to think that I was a bit unmoored because I didn't like love music, or I didn't love, podcasting, or I didn't love like screenwriting, whatever. I enjoyed doing all of them, and I loved the feeling of doing them, but that it wasn't the thing that like you come back to because you love it. And I realized the thing that I was in love with was the spaceship. And that all those other things were planets, but that the thing I loved was the act of flying around the cosmos.
I see. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And like that I felt like at the helm of, like I always felt like in Firefly, you're like at the helm of the ship. But part of that is that I always love the crew. Like I think that the best thing that's ever happened to me is that I'm not great at anything. And so I know exactly like when to like, hands-on like work on stuff. And the exact moment when I need to sit in my chair and like bring up the comms,
Right. Yeah.
Different power to rear thrusters.
Yeah. Or just like, like call the mechanic on the crew as opposed to trying to fix my own, photon combustor.
Right. You're an essential part of any team. Obviously, that's because I've been flying solo for a long fucking time, and to do all of that yourself, I'm also bad at a lot of things, and I've received a good amount of help, not nearly as I should have taken a lot more help. And now, like the endless amount of help that I get, even just with, Flatsound it's just me, and it's always been just me, but not really, not it's me doing the writing and the recording and the all that stuff. But it's like Billy's an amazing photographer. where would I be without her skills of just even just if she's not helping with the actual recording and singing, I run everything by her today, and it makes me such a better artist. Because a lot of things that happens with art is that I think it's so common for any artist to be really active when they're like 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and then start to dip off. I have a lot of friends who are my age and that they're 30, and I'm just like, what happened to you? Come on, dog. Like, let's go. We got to make some more of this shit. We're just getting started. We're 30. Come on, 30 is the fucking beginning. All of that shit was practice. Let's go. And they're done already, you know? I want to keep getting better at what I do. I want to become a better writer than the songs that have 10 million fucking streams on Spotify. I want to make better music than that, you know? And I want to still be active. And Billy helps with all of that shit because I'm running things by her. I won't release a song. I won't release an album until her and I have sat down together and mixed it together. We have to sit there and you know, I mean, like, you know how it is. We're turning things down by half a dB and being like, does this feel different to you? Yes, of course it feels different. I'm not an idiot. Like, it feels way different. It sucks. Put it back, you know? And then we're moving things. Because the reality is no fan is listening to your song or even to like your podcast and thinking like, God, this is so good. It's just, I wish it were panned just 3% more to the left, you know? Nobody's doing that. But,
or this is so good, I wish that they'd only done 100% of it. You know, like on that other side too, it's like the people you bring into it is not something that you're going to get, that's going to take away from the experience.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't watch a movie and you're like, oh shoot, I wish it was only the director also writing and
acting. Yeah, it's like art is inherently collaborative. Like there is pretty much no way to do it. Yeah, and I think that's a really profound thing, that you don't necessarily lose anything. You generally speaking have more to gain from letting people in than you do to lose.
Right.
You only lose you know, like your master split or your know, your PRO, you know, portion. But actually I think like my biggest point of pride reaccounting is at the end of the year, you know, making the 1099s for our friends. Right. You know, and essentially saying like, oh man, like not only were we able to eat and like whatever, but we gave this much to, you know, to this writer and we gave that much to that writer. That's and that dope. Like that at no point in my stomach feels wrong. Like if anything, I get really, really excited about that part because it feels like, you know, it feels like investing in a community. Right. And I'm newly in a partnership, if you will. And she's been really good about like letting me embrace the spaceship. And she more pushes me to just like try, if I have an idea, not let it sit for a year. Right, just, like,
exactly. Which is hard sometimes because you're just like, that'd be great. I don't have any time, or I don't even know how I would start that or something. I'm sure you guys' phones are just full of shit that you will like do or not do, you know?
Absolutely. Right, no, exactly. Well, and I'm like, oh man, I have a great idea. It's just going to take some time. And I'm just like so busy. And then I'll spend 3 hours playing Overwatch.
Of course. Yeah. Oh my God. I play so many video games. What would you say is your guys' like, is your thing that you're into that kind of not sets you apart, but makes it not even hard to relate to, but what like chess or like, not even Smash because it's so popular, but something that you grew up with that you someone would find surprising about you or hard to relate with.
Oh, this is the trouble with interviewing podcasters. They just hit us right back with it.
Of course. I could start if you want.
Yeah. You know, you start and we'll see if it dislodges anything in my brain.
I'm a juggalo.
Oh, that's interesting.
I am an enormous
Clown Posse fan.
I am an enormous juggalo and have been since I was probably in the 5th grade. And I can't turn the microphone to show any of you guys, but there's a giant poster of the Insane Clown Posse on my wall right there.
Wow.
I'm not wearing my Hatchet Man right now, but I'm sure I could find something Hatchet Man adjacent on the desk there. I grew up listening to the Insane Clown Posse. I grew up painting my face like a fucking clown when I was in middle school.
Wow.
It was before I got into like I had gotten into like emo music, which got me into indie, which got me into which got me into wearing eyeliner, straightening my hair, which got me into just and then I was making music when I was 16 and all that stuff. But before then, I was a juggalo. Became very embarrassed by it throughout my high school years. But then at some point in my 20s, I was like, what the fuck am I? This is the coolest shit I'm into. I know everything about these motherfuckers, and they're so inspiring to me, and they're so good to me. I fucking love them forever. And now it's just an enormous part of my personality. I even released through an artist on Psychopathic Records. I became buds with him. He was the newest artist that Insane Clown Posse had signed to their label. And
wow.
I became buds with him, and we did a t-shirt for charity. He really wanted to do a t-shirt that said, trans juggalettes are juggalettes. And I was like, that's the most
awesome.
That's the most niche thing I can fucking imagine. Let's fucking do it. I've always been really vocal about trans rights, and I was like, you're perfect. You're absolutely perfect. Let's do it. And we raised a few $1,000s for a trans rights organization here in
That's
California.
So good.
What's the organization? We can plug them right now so people can, if they feel inclined to donate, we might even donate after the end of the podcast.
Can you put it in as like a postscript thing, because it was 2 years ago and I completely forgot the name.
Absolutely. Jumping in from the future to say that the organization that Mitch is talking about here is Positive Images.
Positive Images is a grassroots organization whose mission is to provide support, advocacy, and education to Sonoma County's LGBTQIA+ community.
If you'd like to make a donation, we'll be including a link in the show notes, and we'll be making a donation ourselves. Now back to the show. That's fascinating. That's incredible. I can't talk. I mean, I don't think we can necessarily, I don't think there's anything that's going to be that out of left field for anybody listening to who know us, but I do think I have something.
Okay.
What would surprise people, especially if they have seen photos of us or just sort of generally understand our lifestyle, is that I'm actually a pretty serious cyclist.
Oh, really?
My dad, his way of exercising, because he wouldn't really go to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, he would jump on a trampoline, just to get himself warmed up, and then he would go on an hour-long, 2-hour-long, 3-hour-long bike ride.
Whoa.
And my dad, was one of the first, one of the early work-from-home people, because he's a business coach.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes, when you, I don't know if he necessarily did this, but when he had, when the Bluetooth came out, I know he would go on bike rides, and that's how he would make some of his calls.
Dope.
I don't know if it was to clients or just his assistant or whatever, but he would work, and that was how he got his exercise. And from my youngest age, I lived in a small town in New York, biking was how you got everywhere. So I would bike with my dad, I would bike to school, I would bike with my friends. It was a big part of the culture that I grew up, of growing up in the suburbs.
That's dope.
That we really, really didn't outgrow. And, I moved to Boston, which was great for biking in, and LA is great for biking in, especially the East Side, because it's relatively flat, but there are nice hilly moments. So people don't realize that, because a lot of my work in Sleeping Lion is phone calls and just listening to a demo 100 times to find out what's wrong with it. Noah is the capital P producer who works in the DAW. I'm the lowercase p producer from the 80s who is listening for what a song could be. And so I really love getting immersed in that. And I'm also I get so distracted when I'm home on a phone call with the computer and video games or whatever, that having no distraction other than driving or biking is great. So I bike for anywhere from 4 to 8 miles a day.
Whoa, that's
for about an hour or 2 or 3. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, especially because the producer, the engineer, that lifestyle is sitting in a chair for so long doing the same thing in front of a computer, and then you're gotcha, I'm fit. I'm actually
well, that's the thing. I gotta my sort of joke is I got a producer credit on the bike.
Right.
Because my job is to is again to hear this demo and to imagine, oh, well, what if we got a cello player on it? Oh, this section is losing energy. Why is it losing energy? How is it losing energy? And then taking those notes either mentally or actually, or calling Noah immediately while on the bike.
Right.
To, and then that's a 20-minute phone call of us just sort of figuring it out. But again, I'm already halfway to Silver Lake,
That's dope.
So yeah, I guess for people listening who maybe didn't know, I was a very serious cyclist.
I would love to get into something like that, just because I'm so inactive. I have to just be Mitch, it's a bare minimum. You have to walk at least 5,000 steps a day, dude. That's nothing. That's just a couple fucking miles. Just walk 5,000 steps a day. It's fucking easy. Just do it. But certain day, and then I'll mostly do it if I have lots of phone calls that day or something, because then I can just walk and talk and walk and talk and walk and talk. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. I'm at like 7,000, cool. But that's bottom. Like that's really just like
no, it's surprisingly difficult here. I was looking at my average because this is tying into me about to answer the question as well. That I spent when I was 10 to when I was 17 living in Rome, Italy, and when you live in a place like that, you walk everywhere. Like when I'm back home for the holidays, I'm walking like on some days, and especially like when we're in Venice, like or in Florence or something. I'm walking 25,000 steps a day. Like, and that is my happy place. Like, I love New York for that reason. Like, I love, there are days in New York I'd walk from like 100th Street all the way down to the bottom of Manhattan.
And
Boston, we'd walk around. But
like,
I love walking around a city. It's kind of like the tragedy of LA that I don't get to do that. But I've also found a love for driving, which has kind of been a surrogate for that. But anyway, one thing that maybe might surprise people about me, even people who might know me, is none of it has been very consistent, but I have had very interesting excursions into like weirder parts of physical activity. One being I was really into karate as a kid. I got really good at karate when I was like, before I moved to Italy and like when I was living in Zimbabwe, I got like to like brown belt in karate. Wow. Like I was like a pretty good at martial arts. And then I tried keeping it up in Rome. And the two kind of weird like excursions that people, I think anyone who knows me and that I'm kind of like, I mean, now I'm trying to stay active. Like I'm getting better at working out regularly, but I'm also, I'm kind of a sedentary person and kind of like a mild mannered person. But I did parkour for a year. Hey, I took a parkour class and like learned a bunch of that kind of movement. And I also took this very obscure form of martial arts called Wing Chun, which I was thinking about recently, because what's interesting about Wing Chun is that it's all about redirecting energy, that it's not so much about inflicting force as using other people's force or weakness against them.
Whoa,
which I think was part of what appealed to me about it. It was a kind of self-defense that was less about how hard you hit and more about exploiting people's like unawareness of their own body weight. And I thought that was really interesting.
Wow. Yeah, that's really cool. I wish my thing was physical and it wasn't just painting my face in middle school.
I'm surprised you didn't say like acting. Like I think that like people don't realize that like you when you were a kid you acted as much as you did music.
Yeah, I acted more than I did music.
Really?
I was deep into theater. I had a relatively small theater program, and I was also pretty good at it. So I was the star of the play and the musical pretty much 4 years running. Like 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade. I was the lead in 8 plays.
Oh, Jesus. So did you have creative parents as well? Like, were you pushed into that at a young age?
Not so much. I mean, my dad kind of plays guitar. My mom comes from a sort of artistic household, but they both sort of worked in NGOs.
So that was just like mostly you, just, hey, I want to pursue theater as a child?
Yeah, I think theater came, but honestly, I mean, I was acting. I had a huge role in the 4th grade play too. Like, I think I just loved being on stage. I think I just always loved performing.
Really? Wow.
And I think that bug was just always there, and I was just naturally better at it than I was at sports. Like I had sports teachers saying, "Hey, you're bad at this," and I had music and drama teachers being, "Hey, you're really good at this." So I just like naturally got that validation, that little hit of validation from a really young age of people saying like, "Hey, you're really special." And I was like, "Really?" And then that was it. Like that was it for me. I was just like,
I had most people telling me that I was just kind of bad at things. They were just like, "You're not good at sports," and it's just like, "Oh, you're also not really good at math." It's like, okay, cool. I was good at just the one thing, and it was writing, but I failed out of like everything else. They were like, "You're a great writer." I'm like, "That's cool. I still don't want to come to class, so I'm not going to do that."
I feel that my music teacher at school thought I was like dog shit at music.
Right.
And my mom was the drama club. So like at my school. So I didn't I was still in the school plays because she sort of was like, "You come on, it's going to look bad if you don't do that."
Right.
But at the same time, and also my like high school crush was in it. In the school plays. So I'm like, let's do this. But yeah, like I had a film teacher who was essentially like, "Hey, like you actually are good at this. I don't know what that means to you, but keep chasing that feeling."
Yeah.
But did you were you going to settle on karate, or were you going to stumble on chess?
I think actually the thing that I thought of that's more similar to yours as a piece of pop culture that because the thing I was struggling with this question was like, what's something that's still actually a big part of my personality, not just something that like I was a foray into something. I think the most interesting thing I can point to is that when I was really young, when Pokemon was on the air, my mom just didn't want me to watching it because she thought it was too violent. And then when I got a little bit older, I was allowed to watch Digimon. And even though I'm sure my mom would have let me watch Pokemon, at that point I was just really into Digimon. And Digimon's not exactly like obscure, but I feel like the zeitgeist or the majority of people I meet have a much deeper relationship with Pokemon.
It's true for sure.
Than than something like Digimon, which is arguably like the CVS brand knockoff version of it, because I'm pretty sure it was created afterwards. But I think because of that as well, because it's this kind of underdog piece of culture, and my first band that I was ever in when I was 15, we were all Digimon kids rather than Pokemon kids. So it was this huge bonding experience. We watched the first 2 seasons together as a band. And it was this really wonderful bonding experience, and it really solidified in my heart of hearts that like I love this show, and I have a kind of possessive, like defensive nature of like everyone thinks Pokemon is cool, but Digimon is like, I personally think, a deeper and richer and
you're
more
like,
interesting.
Not to play devil's advocate, but
not to play devil's advocate, but my shit is cooler.
Yeah,
and it's
exactly.
like, it's totally like ego and like if anything, it comes from a place of insecurity. But it is also, I also do just think, regardless of whether we're ranking culture, I also think the Digimon is just underrated. Like I think that not enough people know how good and deep and dark that show gets.
Yeah, for sure.
Because the irony, the last thing I'm going to say is the irony of the thing is that in Pokemon, when a Pokemon gets defeated, it goes in a little ball and it sleeps. When Digimons get defeated, they die. They get disintegrated out of existence.
That
like,
alone.
it is exponentially more violent,
Like,
which I think is just funny. But I think that's also what makes it. I think that's also what makes it interesting to me, is that the stakes are higher in it.
I have another one for Noah, and it's funny because I can't think of anything for me, which solidifies my hypothesis, which is that Noah is interesting and I talk a lot. I don't want you to do this, Noah, because I want to keep this podcast episode at a normal length, but if you asked him, which at some point I think in your life, Mitch, you should, he can actually make a compelling argument for why in a dystopian future, we could actually kickstart the economy through Arizona iced tea cans.
I have a morbid and fervent and unexplainable fascination with the Arizona Beverage Company.
Because of the consistency to which it's maintained its dollar policy.
Mountains. This company moved mountains to keep that price point.
Everybody can see how passionate he's getting right now. He's really into this.
I'm ending it right here.
Yeah.
I am nipping it in the bud before it starts.
We are saying no more.
I just want you to know that if you were ever really bored, that is a piece of information you could find out through him.
Having a plethora of knowledge of anything like that is always so good, because you so much of this shit consumes our lives. Because sometimes I'm like, how do I even find time to get good at Smash? Because I'm doing this shit all the time.
Right.
But it's always good to just when you're not doing this stuff, you're just kind of cramming your brain with some other useless shit. You're just
we have a trivia team.
Oh, really?
We have a trivia team called Guessing Lion.
Yeah, we do it every week.
What don't you guys have at this point?
Pausing the podcast to shout out our sponsor, New Wave.
No, I've been drinking coffee my entire life.
As a Roman, same.
As a New Yorker, absolutely.
It's our birthright.
It's our birthright. We came out of the womb drinking coffee.
Fully caffeinated.
And the thing is that we're not getting any younger.
That's true.
And we're not getting any less anxious.
Oh, man, that's true too.
I'll say I have loved coffee my whole life, but lately it hasn't really been agreeing with me.
How so?
Unfortunately, when I drink coffee now, I just start feeling very agitated, very anxious. And I've been looking around for alternatives that don't make my heart just beat out of my chest while I'm in the middle of working. And that's how we stumbled upon New Wave. New Wave's Flow State Coffee is an organic ground coffee meant to lower anxiety, improve brain function, and support creativity. With L-theanine and raw cacao, Flow State Coffee is meant to feel like a cup of hot chocolate or tea while giving the energy of coffee.
And now, through Talking Lion, you can try a couple cups of your own.
If you go to their website, newwave.co, that's N-O-O wave.co, you can use the code BrewingLion for 10% off your first order. We hope you get a creative boost and find your flow state.
Now, back to the show.
Where are you from?
Okay, I was born in Mexico, so I'm from Cabo San Lucas, was born in La Paz, was only there when I was just a small baby, came up to the United States, lived in Washington for a little bit. Again, I was a small baby, who cares, but I've been in Southern California my whole life.
Oh. Got you. What, Washington, not the DC?
Washington State, yeah.
Got you. Oh, so yeah, you've been Western. Yeah, I'm an East Coaster. I'm New York, New York born and raised. Yeah.
Dope.
And how old were you when you started Flatsound?
I think I was 16 years old. I was 16. So I've been doing it for half my fucking life now, which is nuts, right? But I was about 16 when I started it. I was in high school, maybe about to be 17 soon, and started it just by putting up songs on a MySpace page that were like under the name Flatsound. Like those were Flatsound songs. I was pushed to do it by a partner at the time. She was traveling to Scotland, for the summer. And when you're that young, someone being gone for 3 months is like, how will we survive this? How will we ever get through this? I had a multi-track. I was recording little stuff. I was never actually finishing songs. I was just recording little ideas and stuff. I was learning how to record, and she made me promise her that I would actually finish some songs and I would record some stuff and I would put them up on a MySpace page so she can listen to them while she was gone. So I was like, okay, this is the kick I need. I'll start to put music out there, and I started Flatsound right then. It was like the summer turning 16 to 17. So I've been doing it for a while.
And you actually have a record called Scotland I Wish I Had Stayed.
Yes.
So I think I know the ending of that story.
Of course.
I appreciate that title though. How'd you come up with the name Flatsound?
I have a close friend. He's my best friend to this day. His name is Jordan. And like our dads were friends in like the 70s when they were younger and stuff. And then, they both had kids. They went their separate ways. And then when we were like in elementary school, they linked back up again. And I have a kid. Oh, wow. They should become best fucking friends for life. My father was driving me to Jordan's house for the weekend. I spent like every single weekend there. I was in high school still. It's probably a year before I started Flatsound. And I remember in my head, I was making fun of like local bands or just big projects that would take their names from things that they had found or that they saw that were books or street names or something. There was some like local emo band from the high school that I went to that their name was Glasgow Drive. And that was just like a street in the suburbs of just, that was like a few blocks away.
Right.
And I was like, wow, that's so funny. And I kept thinking about stuff. And I was telling that to Jordan when I got to his house, and we were just like picking up stuff and reading it, being like, oh yeah, if this would be like an obscure noise project, and this would be a this or that.
Right.
And he picks up a box for like a microphone that he had, because we were like just getting into recording at that point. And it was just some like cheap microphone he had. I wish I remembered what kind, but it was just some cheap microphone box. It looked old too. And one of the advertisements on it was like, it goes, eliminates flat sound, and he goes, he was like, oh yeah, this would be this and flat sound. And we both paused, and I was like, I like that kind of. And he's like, I like it too. So he writes it on his wall because he was fucking punk. And he was like, consider that when you start making music, because I always knew I wanted to start something, and he was like, consider that. So when it was time to make the MySpace page, I just like made a list of all the things, and they all sucked other than Flatsound. So I was just like, all right, thanks, Jordan. I'll just use that forever. Thank you.
Well, that's awesome.
Wow, I really love that. It actually reminds me that the first band that I ever started was with my two friends, and our parents were all together watching the World Cup. Mm-hmm. And we got bored of watching the World Cup. And the previous day that week we'd all been hanging out, and we played the Beatles Rock Band together, and had this really fun, virtual video game experience of playing together as a band. Mm-hmm. And we kind of were all like, what if we started a real band? And we came up with an idea for a concept album about pirates and betrayal and stuff. God, we drafted this entire like fictional story about, before we even had music, we came up with what we wanted our first album to be. And then when it came time to find the band name, we tried for a while. It might have even taken like a couple days or weeks, but we eventually went on the Wikipedia list for breeds of birds.
Hell yeah, let's go.
And hit random and found a bird called the cuckoo shrike. And we're like, what if we called ourselves the cuckoo shrikes, but like put the word together and like stylize it. And what I like about that, apart from the fact that it's just a cute story and letting the randomness of the internet decide your band name, is that I also my most recent like musical endeavor is a project called Music for Birds,
nice,
where all the songs are named after birds. And I had to go back to that exact same Wikipedia article to actually
the exact same
compile the list. It was the exact same Wikipedia article to compile the list.
Years later.
years later that I was still using this Wikipedia article to name music after.
Well, you should write a song about the nostalgia of like writing music as a kid without any pressure and call it Cuckoo Strike.
Yeah, that's on my list. I haven't written the song yet because it feels so charged. But that was one of the earliest ideas for Music for Birds, was to have a song called Cuckoo Strike for that precise reason.
God, that's so dope.
A funny thing that like I mentioned before we started the podcast, but now here we are, is that we met over Twitter because of our friend Meg Meyer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she listened to your podcast or like followed you on Twitter, and she was like, "Oh, hit him up." And so I reached out to you on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And what was funny was that I trust Meg inherently. I'm like, if she likes, if she likes him, if she likes whatever, like, great, awesome. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, an artist who has a podcast, that'll be an interesting episode, which I think so far it has been. The listener, that's for you to decide. Please rate this podcast. I don't know. But what's funny is like I'm like, why does Flatsound sound so familiar? And I look back and
You're like, I knew it. And you had that same microphone box in your room when you were a teenager.
yeah. Well, I thought I recognized one of your cover arts, and I click on it, and all the songs on that record are saved. And I click on "You Want to Look for Help," and the moment you start singing, I'm like, I used to listen to this.
That's so
all the
funny
time
to me. That's
when
so
I was making
dope.
folk music. So I literally messaged you on Twitter. I'm like, okay, so when I actually talked to you 10 minutes ago, I didn't know who the hell you were, and I just thought you were cool. But now I realize that I'm also like have been a fan of yours for a long time. So now you know.
That's super, super cool. Yeah, no, I'm always so surprised at the reach Flatsound has had without being on a label or working with anybody or doing anything like that. Because whenever, God, even just like my little sister or something will she's like 25 now, and she's still just like, I wore your shirt at work and someone said something about it. It was so I could just be like, that's my brother. And they're like your actual brother? And she's like, yeah, that's Mitch. It's my brother. It's like, that's so bizarre to me, because it that hasn't really touched me yet. But whenever someone is just, oh, I've heard of Flatsound, I was like, oh, that's cool. How? How on earth?
And also you've been around long enough.
So
where
fucking long. Yeah. It's the longevity more than anything, I think. I just haven't gone away yet, you know?
But you've been around long enough that not only, do people know you, but like you do have that, not Insane Clown Posse, whatever, but like the nostalgia niche influence status.
Flatsound fans are really, really dedicated and really, perhaps to a detriment. I have to. I'm very vocal about not being weird to me, and I decided years ago too that I was like, if you just personally just started talking to these people and just trying to educate them, like, hey, I know stan culture is like a thing. It doesn't apply to me at all. I read all of these. Please don't dehumanize me. It helps them become like a cooler person. And now, instead of just losing a fan or having an annoying fan, you now have a cool fan,
Right.
That's really interesting.
But yeah, Flatsound fans are really, really dedicated. They're just like I used to think, like well back in like the MySpace days, I used to think, man, if somebody other than my friends listened to my music, that'd be really cool. If somebody in Australia listened to my music, that'd be really cool. Like if I just did like one release and I just released like a just like a CDR or something, and I just had that many songs, like an EP or something, that would be really cool. And then the faraway dream for me was always like, if somebody, okay, let's say like, I don't know, let's say years later, and I stopped Flatsound a long time ago, but I just learned or something that somebody got a tattoo inspired by my work at some point would absolutely change my life. And now I've seen too many Flatsound tattoos to count. Like it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Flatsound tattoos, and it never stops feeling weird to me. It's always just like, wow, why the fuck did you do that? Are you sure you want that? Like that's very, I'm extremely flattered. Are you sure you want that? Don't feel inclined to do that. That's a permanent decision on your body. Holy shit.
I think the first time, so and again, to the paid for your music, like no sleeping. No, actually, wait, no, Skylar got Rug.
Yeah.
Okay, so actually there is, shout out to Skylar.
Shout out to Skylar.
We do have one sleeping lion tattoo on somebody. But the other, the other piece is like the first tattoo we saw was somebody got a tattoo of a song we wrote for somebody else.
Dope.
And even that, like with that degree of separation, sent me into a full on panic.
Of course. You're just like, and forever for the rest of their lives, unless they get it covered up or something. But still, like hopefully they won't. And then My God, it's just such a strange honor. It's almost like an honor to the point where I don't want to be involved with it too much. Like I stopped doing requests for my handwriting for a tattoo a long time ago because I'm just like, I totally get why you would want that. I don't want to do it, but it's totally awesome.
Because you wouldn't just do it once. You would do it like, you know, if you're anything like our brains, you would do it like 80 times knowing it was going to be on somebody. Like,
I just can't stand the thought of like my handwriting being on it because I'm always just like, that song meant a lot to me and it meant a lot to you, and that's great, but it means two totally different things to the both of us. Let that separation exist. I didn't do that. Like, you had your own connection to that song. Have that be your connection with it and not something that feels like it's putting me on a pedestal, you know?
Well, yeah. What is interesting though, and to what I was sort of saying a little bit earlier, was that like we're your sister's age. So if we started listening to you day one, we would have been 11.
Right. And I have some fans that are. I have some fans that are literally like, I was 11 when I found Sleep. And I was like, I can't express how gross that is to me, dude. Like, please don't. Like,
no, but the sort of thing that I'm playing at is like, you know, best case scenario, our day one, if they are our age, was, you know, 20 or 19 when, you know, not as necessarily formative as somebody who's been around as long as you have. So the thing is that like, yeah, you weren't just like, oh, something I listened to at that time because I think I was going through a breakup, but also like an influence. Like, I think that's, especially in the age of like influencers, means something different. Right. You know, they're influencers, but there are also people who, like, when you are starting to make your art, you listen to, and you know, the fact that like, and we hope that at some point, like and I think we have to a degree, you know, somebody's like, oh, well, I started making music because I listened to that thing that, you know, to you and some other people, whatever.
For better or worse, we are responsible for a whole swath of people choosing to go to Berkeley. I've gotten that directly from people, and that's an overwhelming feeling of like, wow, I was part of your decision to choose this school. Like, I was part of the thing that factored in it. And I'm like, I'm honored, but also like, sorry. Like,
yeah. But it's like, that's the big, the long and short of it is that like I like your music plenty, but it was also like important at the time I was listening.
Of course,
to it. Like, in my own, it's like you're part of my creative makeup, which is which is weird.
Awesome
if that sounds weird to you, that's also like, you know, whatever. That's if
it makes you feel any better, I had never heard it yet.
That's funny.
Pausing the podcast to remind you that we have a Patreon that you can subscribe to if you want to support the show.
If you're enjoying this episode, but you're thinking that you've got a burning question for an artist, or you just want to talk with us, or maybe you just want to mug with our faces, our Patreon's the way to go.
So go to patreon.com/talkinglion to subscribe.
Now back to the show. Do you have a favorite line in You Want to Look for Help, or like something about the song that like you don't think people would immediately notice that you want to sort of like shy? Because that song's, I think, the most sort of special to me, and I'm curious if there's anything that I've missed, you know?
It would be, I don't know, because that whole release to me is really nice. The whole release was something that I was working on for a while. I was planning originally to not do Flatsound anymore after Sleep, after 2012. I was just like, I'm done with that. I think I'm going to pursue something else. Maybe it's time I do get a job and I do something. Sleep was kind of a flop, but now it's my most listened to album. It didn't hit right at first. And I worked super hard on it, and I thought, fuck, like this sucks. And then I gave it like a couple years, and I was like, no, I got an EP in me. Come on. I mean, like, I never stopped making music. I put out some stuff, but I don't ever really, I listen to my own music a lot. I'll put on my own music when I'm just like walking to listen to like what I liked about a song from 10 years ago, and how can that translate today, knowing more than I did then, but still retain that magic that I had then of not knowing. Because I have this whole thing where I think not knowing something in art is just the most magical position you can be in. To experiment and not know what's at the end of that, you can never recreate that once you learn it. And
I wholeheartedly agree. Yeah.
Now I'm sort of at the cusp always of not knowing the next thing. You know, I'm always just like, what can I do, you know, that I don't know? It's okay to be comfortable with mixing and do some reductive EQ if you need it, or to you know, and to learn that now at this age is awesome. But let's see, You Wanted to Look for Help. My favorite thing about that song, because you can ask me about any Flatsound song and I'll say, oh yeah, I know exactly where I was when I recorded it. I know what microphone I used when I recorded it. I know what I recorded it into. And the cool thing about that song is that there's a little bit of snare in it
Yeah.
And
there's like a build to the whole song too, which is so pretty.
And I recorded the snare at the same time as my vocals because I was actually just hugging the snare drum as I was singing, and I was just kind of hitting it with my hand because I thought that would just be the most creative way to do the song, you know?
That's awesome.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, so that's just like looking back at it. I remember the recording process of it, but mostly I remember hugging a snare drum as I hit it with my finger and I sang to it, you know?
And all I want is to find myself in anyone. And I wonder if you're having fun. I wonder if you're having fun.
I mean, like that was kind of hard to comp, but I still was just like it has to line up like this, and
well, it has Elliott Smith levels of like being in the room with the artist, and I think that is a way of like the way that you sort of brought it in.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, but that song also, I'm pleased that you like it so much, considering it's the least popular of the release.
And that's why I even looked it up. I'm like, how did I find the song? Was it like in a TV show? Was whatever? I think it was like an out there Pandora suggestion.
That's
when
cool.
I started listening to like that kind of stuff.
That's really, really cool.
Like the sort of more lo-fi stuff. So yeah, super random. It was like super random. I spent probably about 20 minutes being like, do I like the song because I heard it in some CW show and I'm just like on the train and then I'm going through.
I wish that was why you heard the song.
I mean, don't we all, you know? That's awesome. Well, you put out something in 2019, which is an instrumental.
It's an ambient music album, yeah.
An ambient music record. That's awesome. We've been toying around with like making a piano record under a pseudonym.
They're so fun.
Because
they're so good.
You know, and also those playlists are like literally just like the most money on Spotify.
Oh yeah, no, I'm like, I think there's actually something wrong with my brain. I didn't submit that album to playlist at all. I didn't, but it was an ambient music album, and it gets pretty good plays too, but like not as much as it could. Man, if Spotify just put that on a playlist called like Sleepy Time, it would have changed my life. I would have had a house by now, you know? Like it's seriously, those things, people press play and then fall the fuck asleep. So they get plays like crazy.
Well, right. I've even toyed around because of my background in sound design with making like those, you know, like compiling a bunch of Rain, you know, royalty-free Rain samples plus my own samples and just making like a bunch of YouTube Rain, like whatever. So yeah, for anybody looking for like very out there, like alternate revenue schemes, like that's a
good one.
Yeah. Talk to us again in a year from our bathtub full of money and we'll tell you how it went.
Exactly. I have like two separate friends who made like a decent amount of money just because they started doing like videos on YouTube that were just like hour-long meditation, you know, and it was just them hitting like a singing bowl or something, you know, and then you know, the algorithm just like works in their favor at some point, and then suddenly it has 3 million fucking views, and that's a revenue stream right there, you know.
Well, and I think where my like again commercial brain is like, okay, we are, no matter what market you're in, you're going to be in a saturated market. I know that we care about quality, but we also have the capacity for quantity. So okay, why not NFT everything we've ever made ever? Why not you know, make 25 ambient videos and 30 piano songs and whatever, and make instrumentals of everything we've ever done too? Like, because if the money is it hitting once, you're just buying as many lottery tickets as you can.
Exactly.
You're not saturating the market because the market's already been saturated by other people. Yeah. You know, so that's kind of like where my head's at.
Especially with things like that, or things like syncs, which I've never tried to get just because it's extremely competitive. It's really saturated, and it is like winning the lottery. Like you can just throw your chance at it over and over again. I want to do it. Here's my name in the bucket. Please pull mine. And then the next thing you know, Ford wants your fucking some indie sounding, hey, instrumental in a fucking commercial, and they paid you hundreds of thousands of dollars for it, you know? And I know a lot of musicians that do that, but it's never been something that I put my energy into ever. But I mean, no hate to anybody that does. It's so lucrative. Like it's so, but it's also lucrative all at once and then nothing for a long time, you know?
Right.
It's,
No, exactly. It's gambling to an extent, and especially when your time and your resources are limited, it definitely makes sense to put your gumption and your grit towards more tangible results in the short
And
term.
I think that's why we don't do, like, I know we have a lot of friends who do like sync camps. I think that we tend to sort of avoid those and more just like focus on our projects, but also like the breadth of our projects, which is all the random solo stuff we do, like all of our collaborations with people.
Yeah, like passively increasing our chances for sync and not instead of like pursuing
by
other goals.
increasing the quantity of our output as opposed to literally just writing for sync.
Yeah.
Right.
But you know, I love the name of the record though, because it's somewhere in the distance, somewhere in the mountains. That's where we were yesterday.
Oh yeah, you guys had like a 12-hour drive, right?
We just drove. The drive there was terrible because there was a tow truck in the middle of the street, and the snowstorm had come in. We were, I think, in Rifle, Colorado, and I didn't because of the visibility. I didn't know that the tow truck was in the street. I thought it was on the shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
And so the moment I realized, I tried to brake, but the roads were icy.
Oh no!
And there was a truck on the right.
And there was a truck on my right, so I couldn't swerve to the wrong. So I just turned left into a ditch.
And then we were in a ditch.
We were just in a ditch.
In Colorado.
Oh my God,
Colorado.
just died.
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean, we were very lucky. There wasn't even like a nick on the car.
Yeah, the car made it through, right.
And
we did destroy a bush, though.
We did destroy a bush. But we were also very lucky that it was a tow truck.
It was a tow truck
pulling another car.
To
it was a tow truck pulling another car out of the ditch that we were swerving to avoid.
So then there was immediately someone to pull us out of said ditch, even though it was the person who got us into said ditch.
And immediately he had zero problems. Like, he didn't even blink. Where I'm like, we were kind of in here because it was your fault. He was like, yeah, that's cool. That'll be $215.
Oh, whoa. He was just straight to business right then. He was just like, he fucking did it on purpose at that point.
That was the rest of the car ride. We genuinely, and we had been. This was 11 hours into a 12-hour drive or 13-hour drive, so we were tired. But it doesn't even end there because it was snowing, and my grandparents live kind of in the mountains.
Oh God!
Our car got stuck. Like, we just couldn't get up the rest of the mountain, like just on a random street about 1.5 miles from where they live.
Oh Jesus!
So we just parked the car
in the snow.
Grabbed
what we could carry.
And walked in the snow for 1.5 miles.
Walked in the snow for 1.5 miles.
Yeah.
I would be like, miss me with that shit. I'll die here.
Well,
it was strongly considered as an option.
We were strongly here because here was the thing. We were like, okay, well, we could risk carbon monoxide poisoning and freezing.
That's true.
Freezing
yeah,
in the
I
car,
guess there's that.
like by sleeping in the car. We can't call for any kind of help because there's no cell service up in the mountains. We can't knock on the neighbor's door because everybody from our position lived 1.5 miles away because it was like a ranch.
Oh my God!
So we were like, there is one way to do it, and honestly, I was like, we could still die because there are like wolves and mountain lions. So
you get 3 feet from the car and get attacked by a mountain lion.
Well, we were approaching my grandparents' driveway and we saw a shadow and we were like convinced it was a wolf, but it
really looked like a wolf.
But also it could have been Cthulhu. It broke our brain.
It was a Lovecraftian experience.
At that point, you've been traveling for so long. I don't know what the fuck.
Yeah, we were delirious. It was like we were also just like had road brain.
Well, because we knew we had to go forward enough to find out what it was.
Yeah.
But it could also just kill us. But we knew that if we went back to the car, we would also potentially die of carbon monoxide poisoning or freezing. So we were like, okay.
We must face the demon in front of us.
We must figure out what it was. It was a garbage can.
It was a garbage can.
Was it really? Yeah. Oh, thank God.
It was a garbage can.
Imagine you die of carbon monoxide poisoning because of a garbage can.
I mean, honestly, he died how he lived, tilting at windmills. But he died how he lived, fucking scared of things that didn't exist.
Oh wow,
nice.
Yeah, he died how he lived, breathing bad air, I guess, because we live in LA. Whatever. He died how he lived, halfway up the mountain.
Hey,
his potential's still intact. No, yeah, tangentially, but I love the name of your record because we just came back from there. The drive back was a lot smoother.
Yeah. That's good. The album was something I've been wanting to do for a long time at that point, and because my most popular album, the one that flopped at first and then all of a sudden has millions of fucking streams years later, is called Sleep. And that album, the reason it's called Sleep is because it's half songwriting, half ambient music. So at a certain point of the album, it just drops off into just being noise. And then
That's
it's that for the rest of the tracks. So it was almost like Flatsound has always been a songwriting, but also experimental noise soundscape project. So I thought, at least in 2012, I was 21, 22 years old. I was just like, wow, that'd be cool. It's like a split album with myself, it's like and so I did that. And the idea was that people would listen to the album and I make it the best album that I could. But then at a certain point, it drops off. People could fall asleep to the album. And it would be a nice album for them to actually fall asleep to. And it did not take. I was just like, oh, they hate it and me. And that's valid and cool. And I also, I agree with them. I hate me too. That sucks.
Right.
But
was Spotify around in 2012? Like, was it?
Yes, because Sleep was the first album that I actually put onto Spotify. So
because I feel like that idea is almost ahead of its time. Like I feel like that idea is geared towards
like
the
Spotify
sort of
Now
like,
or something.
The sort of Spotify Now of like the sort of quantity and experiential. The more quantity a record has and more experiential stuff you have where you can just play it and then fall asleep to it and whatnot is rewarded. And Drake puts out a 40-song record because and some of them are 30 seconds because you just got to get that play and then call it
stream. Yep.
Yeah.
And to do an all ambient music album, it's always like you see the plays on Sleep and the plays also drop off at a certain point. People love the first half of Sleep and only some fans will tolerate the other half because, and I totally get it. It's not the same experience to listen to a song that's catchy and that hits right away as opposed to something that's this drawn out soundscape. I have an immense amount of love for both. I want to be a good writer. I want to create interesting sounding ambient music, and I get why one of those has a smaller audience, but to turn around and not do a Flatsound LP for a long time and then to finally do one and say, hey, it's all ambient music, felt almost like a fuck you to my fans, but I was still just like, what are you gonna do? But I think I love the fans because they're usually a little bit older. They're usually like 25 and above who are like, this is some of your best shit. It's just incredible, and I took the album seriously. It wasn't something that I did quickly. It was extremely thought out. And it was like, how do you tell a story without using words? How do you manage to do something like that? And I'm extremely proud of it. That was a album too that a lot of people reached out to me about, a lot of artists that I never listened to or heard of, but that are ambient music artists solely, and that are just like, we heard the album and we think it's beautiful. And I was like, that's cool. Thank you. Because it felt like a stamp of approval of just being like, cool. Someone within that genre was just like, this is gorgeous work. And I'm like, oh, thank you. It means a lot. It means a ton.
Stopping the podcast to shout out one of our sponsors, The Truffleist. Noah, you like to cook.
I do like to cook.
You're actually very good at cooking.
I'd say I'm decent.
But I think that the thing about cooking that you have taught me is that flavor is everything.
Truly.
You got to bring in little flavors that you wouldn't expect. And one of my favorite flavors is the taste of truffles.
A great flavor.
But we are so lucky to have the Truffleist as a sponsor for Talking Lion. Founded by Jimmy Coons and based in Long Island City, Queens, the Truffleist creates artfully handcrafted truffle products of the highest quality and flavor.
While their truffles are imported from the countrysides of Italy, France, and Spain, they proudly source many of their base ingredients locally from small farms and artisanal producers.
They offer a variety of truffle products, from truffle oil and truffle butter to truffle salami and honey to even truffle hot sauce.
I love truffle hot sauce.
They've also recently launched cheesesteaks by the Truffleist, so keep an eye out for pop-ups in your area. So bring the taste of truffle into your life. Go to truffleist.com, that's TRUFFLEIST.com to place your first order.
Now back to the show.
People don't realize, like, writing a song is not that hard. Like, writing a functional song, there's a lot of history around how to write a functional song,
right.
A lot of information around like how to write a functional song. Writing a compelling instrumental it takes a lot of skill and a lot of talent. And it's really, really challenging. It's not.
Yeah, you're actually composing something, and it's hard. Yeah,
I think it's really impressive, And I love your titles too, like. Consistently
I'm just reading
throughout.
through, I'm just reading through I have it up on the screen right now and reading through the track list of Somewhere in the Distance. It's just like that alone is an experience. Like the titles alone tell the story.
How did you come up with like some of the titles for, like, what's your thought process for, like, I love Learning to Warm Cold Hands. One, extremely relatable.
Because this guy's got bad circulation.
I got bad circulation,
Yeah, no. My song titles are always something that I really want to really want to slip in there early and just be like, I want this to move people as well. I want this to be just as thoughtful as when I'm working on the song, and sometimes even more so, because I'll sit there with a song for days and days and just be like, I don't have the title yet. Like, I don't, but then once you know it, once you actually figure it out, you know it immediately. You go, okay, that's the thing. And sometimes it's something that just feels right based off of what's in the track, especially in like an ambient music track where you're really kind of getting a feel of the song and what story it's trying to tell. But specifically with songs like A Warehouse on the River, that one was interesting because I was watching the show Gotham with my dad, and there was a line. There was a line in it, somebody using the words "a warehouse on the river," and once I hear something, and I'm always taking things in my phone down. I'm always like, that was beautiful, that was unexpectedly beautiful, that was beautiful, and it'll just be like random like shit posts I see online that I'm like, that was gorgeous, that was gorgeous. There was this like, there was this bot on Twitter that gives you just like warnings about certain things, and like one of the warnings years ago was it was just the words, none of this was your fault. And I was just like, okay, taking that down. And it just resonated with me so much. So I'll hear things and just say, wow. And I think the exact line in Penguin was, I think it was like the line in Penguin, in Gotham was, I like this fella, but we're talking about a warehouse on the river. And I was like, a warehouse on the river? Oh, holy shit. And then that night I went and recorded that track, and I was like, a warehouse on the river. There you go. Learning to warm cold hands. That same day I was talking to my therapist. I had a session with him, and we were talking about this thing called biofeedback, which in the vaguest sense, it's using an exact measurement of something to then control something in your body that you thought would not be within your control, like the warmth of your hands or the beating of your heart, how fast your heart is. These are things that we've accepted we have no control over. They're automated things in your body, but they use biofeedback to take an exact measurement of how fast your heart is beating or how cold your hands are. And the practice is to do little subconscious, very, very small things in your body to try and influence that in some way. And one of the most common uses of biofeedback is learning to warm your hands. The idea of that is you become more relaxed when your hands are warm. Cold hands means you're stressed, you're anxious, but warm hands means you're relaxed and you're comfortable. So what can you do in order to warm your hands? And it's this really, really difficult thing because you wear this little thing on your finger and you sit there and you go, I have to do something in order to warm these hands, and it has to be up here. It has to be something up here. It could just be how I breathe. It could be how I sit. But the more you practice it, you can actually learn to warm your own hands. And it's very strange because you're looking at this thing that says, okay, your hands are getting a little bit warmer, a little bit warmer, a little bit warmer. So that same day I learned about that, I created that instrumental, and I was learning to warm cold hands. Boom.
Wow, that's really cool.
That's awesome. And it's a 21-minute journey to actually get your brain in order.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and also like because you're making records and like projects, how titles can sort of interact with each other. Like on Sleep, you know how to make a boy feel warm, you know how to make a man feel useless. Like having these sort of like interactions with the song titles themselves.
Yeah.
I think is really
this
cool.
also goes back to like, I think one of the things that really clicked into place and felt like this kind of explosive artistic moment for me when I discovered the framing mechanism of Music for Birds was I feel like we've been doing the LA pop writing grind for a while, and I feel like that's fine. I love pop writing. I'm personally on a quest to write the biggest, stupidest, Dua Lipa dance song that has like 4 lyrics and gets 1 billion streams. Like
and I'm fighting for there to be 5 lyrics and for that to be okay.
I love that game, and I don't have disdain for that process, but I do have an indie soul, and I do just love Bon Iver especially, and I think that there is a lost or underappreciated art form of using your song titles as part of the artistic narrative or the artistic statement of a work. And that it doesn't have to be, well, the title of your song is the punchline.
Right, exactly.
And the punchline is the catchiest part.
Right.
And that's the part that people are going to know on the radio. It's
That's
this
the
part
title,
of the chorus that repeats. So if someone hears it in a Target or a Walmart, then they know what it is. And I get that. Like that is very much part of trying to get to write the kind of music that can get 1 billion streams. And like I said, I don't have disdain for that process, but I think for my own soul, something really clicked into place when I realized, you don't have to do that. And that there's something really beautiful about using titles as part of the narrative language of your art.
So now I'm here like doing mnemonics, like, okay, well, so condors look like that. And that reminds me of a sailboat. So the song is, the hook is sail on for condor?
No, it's pelican.
Fuck!
Damn.
But I think...
You almost reverse engineered it and failed.
But I think there's something, I appreciate that because it's like, it allows you to have a different relationship with those songs.
No,
you're not listening to them.
I'm just joking around.
Like, oh yeah, like that one's the hook. Is because it's not about what I like about all the music for birdsong is that none of them are about, even though a lot of them are written in the style that we've been writing over the last couple of years. You could point, and in fact, a lot of them are written like old school Great American Songbooks, where it really is about a punchline or a title. But I think there's immense power in leaving that out and allowing the listener to form a relationship with, oh no, this record's just called Pelican. Like that I love. I love the aesthetic of that. That makes me so happy.
Right. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of these big mouthful album titles, these really obnoxiously long ones, but then occasionally just be like sleep. And it's like, okay, that's pretty open-ended. And then hummingbird. Oh, that's pretty open-ended too.
No, exactly.
It's either one or the other, like it has to be like obnoxiously long or one word or something like that. Because I was like, it has more of an effect there. If we could cram a lot into a little, or how long can we get away with? I love how on Spotify it's I stayed up until sunrise but got to fall asleep to the sounds of birds singing, and then parentheses and then more title. Like it's just
I think it's indicative of like we listened to a lot of pop punk growing up, and I loved that, like, Fall Out Boy or Say Anything or whatever would have these really, really long titles that, were like not really related to the song, but sort of related to the song.
Yeah.
So I think Say Anything more than
But like, I mean, one of my favorite song titles of all time is Panic at the Disco's first record. There's a good reason these tables are numbered, honey. You just haven't figured it out.
Right.
Like that's hilarious. As a song title, like that's unhinged.
I write a lot of poetry, and so I think I use that as like a way of like sort of moving away. Mostly because I have such a bad memory for song titles to begin with, that if I didn't name the songs after the thing that is in the chorus, I don't think I'd be able to find the file.
Right. Oh yeah, no, for sure. and then like, as well as that, my file management is so poor as well. So that makes it, I'll like lose stuff. I have people like, I love Flatsound fans so much. I just cannot say that enough, because like they'll hold my project together for me. If a person is like, if a person in the Discord or something is just like, Mitch, I need this one file. I'm like, I don't have it. Jake does, though. He's the fucking archivist. Because anything that I've ever done, I know that he has, or something like that. Like,
it's funny because I'm like, oh, do you remember this song? And you're like, I need you to sing it.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah. It's like, because first of all, I have a sock in my brain, but but I also, like, I've written hundreds and hundreds of songs. Like, I've just written so many songs under the name Flatsound, and I've not stopped, So I'm always like, once it clicks for me, I was like, right, the Fostex MR8 is what I recorded that on, and I used the Blue Spark probably because it was 2012. Yeah, the Blue Spark in this part of my house at my old place. But if someone was just to like, if I have my acoustic guitar and I'm on Discord or something and they're like, can you play this? And I was like, if you give me a week, I have to learn it again, because I wrote it so quickly. I worked on it, and then I moved on to the next 4 songs I wrote that month, because especially at that point in my life, it was just nuts. But yeah, Flatsound fans hold that shit together. They hold it down. Like, it's it's so nice. And going way back, I do think age has a lot to do with that, because I love my older listeners. I'm now 30 years old. So anytime we get someone new in the Discord and they're like, I'm 26, me and Billy are always like, okay, you are our friend now, and we're going to play video games together, because there are sometimes there's like an age limit there, but they're still just like, I just have realistically more in common with a 26-year-old than a 19-year-old, especially people who've been listening to like Flatsound since they were 11 or 12. I made a joke about that earlier, being like, oh, that's gross to me. It's the coolest thing in the world to me, like that you found it at such a formative age. I was in 5th grade when I started listening to ICP, like I was in, and I shouldn't have been listening to the Insane Clown Posse. So yeah, being a super young, being like 12 years old, and you first discover sleep and it resonated with you, and then you can just like talk to me now and stuff. I think that's so cool. That's just so neat.
Pausing the podcast to remind you that voting is now open for the People's Choice Podcast Awards nominations. You can help us get nominated for an award.
Nomination voting is open until July 31st, so go to podcastawards.com to vote for Talking Lion in the music category.
We appreciate your support and we look forward to growing this podcast together. Now back to the show.
I would love your guys' opinion. I would really, really love your guys' opinion. As you know, it's a very common take to have online, to be a musician and to complain about Spotify as a platform and to say that they don't pay artists and that it's an unfair platform. Where do you two stand on that? Being like your background, two LA boys, you're chasing the music thing. How do you feel about Spotify?
I think that one of two things can be true. I think Spotify should pay, what has sort of been agreed upon, and there's the Music Modernization Act, so that is possibly increasing. But that Spotify sticks to a rate and stands by their word that the value they bring is this democratizing of music, where anybody can find a playlist or find an artist and use their discovery tools and all that stuff to really give a career to an artist. And in a lot of ways, we all kind of see royalties and stuff because of that. And I think that in its theory is cool. On the other side, I think that if a label is like, we are the gatekeepers, if you want any kind of real monetary success, and we are going to do it this way and through record sales, and we're going to, help fund your tour and all that stuff, then labels be doing what labels do. And that's for some people and not for other people, and wonderful. I think the problem is that they're now way too close. I think that now, like, New Music Friday is mainly label stuff. I think labels have way too much influence over Spotify, and that at the end of the day takes away from the value that they're using to defend their pricing. Right. I think. And in a lot of ways too, because labels take a certain cut.
They take a cut. They take a certain cut.
They take a cut.
An indie label, if you're lucky, if it's an indie label, they're going to take 50%. If you're signing to a major or anything close, they're going to take it all.
Yeah.
Well, and so that's the thing is, like, if you're not going to have a homogenous system or like a democratic system, and the prevailing system is also going to take the cut that they do for this to be a survivable world for artists, the price needs to go up. So I think that in a lot of ways they sort of cornered themselves by taking these label deals and these label partnerships they cornered themselves into having to raise their price for the fairness of artists. Whereas I think in a lot of ways we wouldn't be having this conversation if we felt like it was a democratic system, or if we felt like there was value in how they were viewing our music. Right. That's my my thought on it.
And I think not even I don't even disagree with anything. I think just piggybacking off of that, my perspective is we as people in the weeds inside the baseball ring, or whatever the expression is that I'm making up right now, inside the baseball ring, we're able to have this conversation about the nuances of, like, oh yeah, this dance between Spotify and labels and what they're able to pay. And I think what you're referring to is the kind of blanket layman's take of, like, isn't it funny that you only get paid 6 cents? And whenever I see that, as much as I make that joke and I understand that joke, there's also something about it that rubs me the wrong way, because I think it is very complicated and very nuanced.
Definitely.
And I think by and large, okay, there's a broader philosophical question of, like, do we want more money as artists? Of course, we all want more money as artists, but I think that Spotify in general is not evil. Like, it's not like a dystopian company trying to, like, it's the fact that they're paying what they're paying, I think often gets characterized as this kind of cartoon villain, or like just like a kind of one, like, sort of like get off my lawn, like, oh, the music industry's dying / just general, like, artists aren't valued in the society, which I think there's merit to, but I also think that sometimes it's a little reductive to say that's Spotify's fault, or that their price point is indicative of, like, the death of the music industry.
But I think that the part of that comes from a level of misinformation. Like,
exactly.
But I think that that's partially their fault. Like, I think that because they're not coming out and saying, well, this is how much we give per stream, because we kind of make it up as we go along.
Right.
And they're based on various deals and various laws that, date back to the 70s. And we will not tell you because of various NDAs, or just because it doesn't behoove us for you to know that you're making less than somebody else, or one person on the label is making less than another person on the label.
Yeah, so that's
so there's a lot of misinformation, and what that leads to is a vacuum for musicians to say, oh, well, we've averaged out this much, or we have our own anecdotal royalty statements to say how much one can make, but we don't know. And in the absence of transparency, it'll always make the person who's withholding the information look evil.
Right.
But also, it allows these things to continue to happen. For example, people don't know that podcasters don't get royalties.
None.
Right.
They just
None
assume that, not like a zero. If this podcast episode gets 100,000 listeners who listen from minute 1 to minute 120,
right, we get nothing.
We will get nothing
from
but
that.
also
Absolutely
here's
nothing
the
from
funny thing about that is if Spotify were to pay podcasters, that would be money that they're not paying artists.
That
Right,
would be money
exactly.
that they're not paying artists.
Exactly.
Like
and on top of that, if people knew that, then if that information was public, then you would see a bunch of podcasters being like, oh, we could ask for that.
Exactly.
Oh, that's something that we could like, or like, why? Yeah.
But that's not unique to Spotify at all. That's podcasting platforms in general. That's Apple Music doesn't pay podcasters either.
And what we're talking about is like, we're talking about Spotify directly, but there isn't any streaming platform there isn't currently a podcasting platform that does pay royalties, because royalties in podcasting doesn't exist yet.
Right.
Your
like
best guess is just like putting it up on YouTube, and then you're just getting YouTube royalties for it.
So that doesn't exist. And but yeah, more or less the question mark around how much is a stream worth is commonplace amongst all streaming platforms. Like Tidal isn't coming out and saying we're giving $1 per stream.
Right.
Like nobody's coming out and saying this is how much we give to everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't help them. It doesn't behoove them.
Yeah.
But isn't that crazy?
Yeah, no, but those are all things, because I should go out and just say I'm extremely pro Spotify. I think that
we are too.
yeah.
We super support it. Yeah.
As streaming platforms go, Spotify changed the music industry. Spotify changed it for the better for indie musicians, and to me, it's an extremely bad take to pit all the blame on Spotify for a system that is still pretty new and not exactly working. All these things that people are blaming Spotify for apply to Apple Music, apply to these other platforms, apply to but I see these indie labels all the time, smaller labels, DIY labels, and they're discouraging their artists from even using Spotify, discouraging their artists from putting their music on Spotify because they think that Bandcamp is the way to make a living. And it's not. It's just not. Getting passive income from streaming is such a great revenue. It's so good.
Amazing, yeah.
And they pay. Look, the music industry has been fucked for a long time. It's not like it was completely fair and then Spotify made it unfair.
No, exactly.
It's sucked since the beginning of time, and Spotify is a great opportunity for a lot of people that wouldn't have got that otherwise,
Exactly.
Labels have always been the issue. Labels have been the issue since the beginning of time. Poor contracts has been the issue. The misinformation that you talked about before, I think, is such a big part of it, because what I want to encourage artists to do is keep chasing these things like Spotify, because I make X amount of money per month. I can't even believe that. Like, I can't believe how much money that I'm making, because I have my master's and I never signed to a label, and I did all that stuff, and I've written all these songs. And it's a ridiculous amount of money. Granted, I'm not keeping any of it right now because it all goes to my IRS debt. But
well, we thought that we were gonna like get evicted in Boston, and then our first major Spotify check came in, and we were like, oh,
and it made the difference.
Amazing,
it made the difference.
Amazing, and that's like, look, like, you think they don't pay enough per stream compared to who though? Compared to what? Compared to Apple Music, there's not that much of a difference, and then also Spotify pays twice as good as what YouTube offers people for plays. Right. And if we look at content creators that are like they make vlogs and stuff, and they buy these fucking mansions off of their YouTube channel with that they get these things, but we consume vlogs in a different way that people consume music. I'm saying it's pretty, compared to becoming a YouTuber, compared to all that stuff. If we look at YouTubers and they say, I'm not making enough money, people look at YouTubers and say, well, you have to grind more, bud. Like, you have to do more in order to succeed in this thing and play the game. But indie musicians will always complain, Spotify isn't paying me a living wage, even though I got a whopping total of 10,000 streams this year. I would never shit on an art. I would never shit on an artist for the amount of streams they get. I celebrate every victory. Get 100 streams that year. That's dope. But it's nowhere near what you would need to realistically make a living off of your stuff. It's absolutely no money because it's
they're like, if it was album sales or if it was iTunes, whatever. I'm like, no, but listen, man, like if
it's a different system.
If you're getting 100
completely
streams or 1,000 streams, that doesn't mean that you would get 100
album
record sales or
It
1,000
doesn't.
record
It
sales,
doesn't.
and that you're making more or less what it is. But at least you get to see the penny. Like
Yeah.
at least
Yeah,
exactly.
before it used to be that if you couldn't sell a $10 record, then you wouldn't be able to see a penny of that. At least now, you can sell a $10 record, but you're seeing every fraction of it you could sell. I do think the reason why Spotify gets all the flack is because if you think about the big three being Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, they're the only one that is independently music streaming.
Right.
What I kind of mean by that is like Apple doesn't necessarily have a pressure to fix their UI or change any kind of like level of their system because past the ability to even compete with, because Apple is busy selling iPhones and
yep.
doing all the whatever. Amazon doesn't have an incentive to again, other than just to be at the table, don't have any incentive to sort of make any kind of adjustments because it's Amazon. Spotify
is only
if
Spotify.
they made
is
just
only
Spotify,
streaming.
and if they made any kind of adjustments, it would then change the culture at the table.
Yeah, I know. I would love, and I'm going to love inevitably when it happens, when they start to pay artists more. Of course, I'm going to love that. I would love some more money, but it's not going to be nearly as much as what people are expecting because the artists I see complaining about it the most. I'm not sure if you've heard about this, but there are musicians who are like forming a union. They're like unionizing against, which again, I mean, it makes absolutely no sense because you're not employed by Spotify at all. So they can, it's for absolutely nothing. And their number one demand is, how much roughly a stream is. They want to bump that up to 1 cent per stream.
Yeah, I mean, that would be impossible.
It would be absolutely impossible. Of
impossible.
course, it would be completely impossible. Also, I would be like a multimillionaire. Like what? And I don't deserve that. It doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, look. If I can make as much money as I do from Spotify per month, but also I walk through a grocery store and I'm just like, hey, I'm Mitch from Flatsound. Does anyone give a fuck? And everyone's like, no. Who the fuck are you? That's amazing. You can be like 1/6 as relevant as Flatsound and still pay your rent. I know that. Artists should strive to get at least there.
Yeah.
In order to pay your rent off of your work. Streaming is a blessing. Like, because what did we have before Spotify? I didn't get paid for MySpace streams, for Tumblr streams, for Bandcamp streams, for fucking Scrabbles or whatever they were called. Like, I didn't get paid for any of those.
Right.
But I want to just sort of shift gears for a second before we get to the question round, because you have a podcast,
I do.
And more than that, it's an advice podcast. Now we give some advice about like how to handle the music industry, whatever here, but like I'm curious. I have two sort of questions in that space. The first is, have you given a piece of advice where that person has come back to you and it's made a real impact, positive or negative? But positive is probably a nicer story.
Yeah, we'll get like follow-up emails all the time from people who are just like, here's like the like continuation of my story. Normally it's like relationship advice, if they're just like, should I do this? How do I navigate this? I had a first date with this person, and we'll give advice that's hopefully not too shitty, and that person will always come back and just be like, here's an update. Like a month later, I went on the second date, it went really good. Or you know what? We actually broke up before you even responded to the question. So it was completely not for me at all, but thanks for answering anyway. But the advice that people don't take usually is regarding music, I guess, because it's like a slower burning, it's our advice is to continue making art for a long time and to do it passionately. So nothing with that, except for just a lot of people saying this inspired me to do that. Who knows if it will work? We'll wait a few years, But a lot of relationship advice from people who are like, I did this and it worked in my favor. We're having our third date, something like that. We're like, that's cool.
That's awesome.
That's really sweet.
That's sweet. Yeah, we sometimes like hear that. Like oftentimes the people who listen to this are more like already in the industry. But I think that for like people who are in the weeds of it, to realize that everybody's literally experiencing the same thing is like, has been helpful to some folks.
Right.
My sort of other question is, what's the strangest question that you've gotten from somebody, and can we answer that question?
On All the Space? Oh my God, the strangest question on All the Space is it'd be like every episode, there's just a question that someone who's just like, not even strange, but just like funny. There's a whole bunch of people who are like, okay, how about this for an example? Because it just completely popped into my head. Somebody was like, I was showering with my girlfriend, and as a joke, I pissed on her foot because I thought it'd be funny. But she had like shampoo in her hair, and she had her eyes closed. So I started peeing on her foot, and she thought that it was a spider. So she ended up kicking her foot and breaking her toes. Do I tell her there was no spider, or and that it was just my piss?
Wow.
I think we should answer that, Noah, and then I think we should find out how you answered that.
Okay. I'll see if I remembered how we answered it, because we're always just like bullshit answer, and then we move on to the next thing.
I think at the end of the day, honesty is probably the best. So, especially because you shouldn't pee on somebody, even if you're in a relationship with them, you shouldn't pee on somebody without their consent.
That's fair.
So I think that the best thing to do is to say, listen, I know you thought it was a spider, but it was me peeing. I understand that it led to some terrible consequences, but I will also do whatever I can to make it right. So this, for as long as your foot is broken, I will, you don't need to use your foot. I will be your feet. Please don't leave me.
Oh my God.
Are you,
Wow.
Are you on the same page, Noah?
I would be inclined to agree. I think honesty is a good policy.
And pee consent.
And pee consent is important.
Of course.
It's the number one most important thing.
I wouldn't know if I'd go that far.
Number one, because it's pee.
Oh, okay, God. I think
Pretty good.
I think yeah, I mean, I don't think I have I could be edgy and say no, lie about it. Let her believe that it was the spider. But I don't think that it aligns with my morals. I think at the end of the day, the thing that is interesting to me about this, I think it's an interesting litmus test of if you can be honest with someone. I think people have different personalities. Obviously, it's a very hilarious and tricky thing. But I think for me personally, if I were, first of all, I wouldn't be in this position. I wouldn't do this.
Yeah, I would not pee on somebody's
I would not
foot.
pee on
That's
someone's
the-
foot.
yeah.
But if I
foot.
were to find myself in this position,
Judgment-free zone.
it's a judgment-free zone. If I were to find myself in this position, whatever, it's a heat of the moment thing. I think the ability to be honest with my partner about that would be a very important indicator as to whether or not I'm with the right person. Because I think the right person for me would find that fucking hilarious.
Of course.
Yeah,
of course.
I think if I felt the need to lie about that, I think that would be an indicator that I'm with the wrong person. And I think if I was able to be open, and it would be, I think with the right person, that would become a hilarious inside joke that you talk about for years.
Yeah,
that is my perspective on it.
I agree with that. I don't pee in the shower even when there's nobody there.
No,
so this is
same,
so far.
same.
out.
So
I
this
just
is
don't want it
pure
on my
science
feet.
fiction right here.
Yeah, it's a personal thing.
So how would you and Billy answer that?
I would have to think back. I mean, we on the show, we always give just like bullshit answers, and then we'll give like a serious answer at the end or something. We'll just like use that to riff for like however long, So
That's fun.
If I were to answer it on the show again, I don't know if this is what we said or something. We would probably just say something like fucking lie, just lie, and then like the next time you're taking a shower, just like do it again
Poop
and
on
be
her
like,
foot and see if she
shit, honey,
notices,
it's back
yeah.
or something,
Yeah.
And but then at the end of it, would just be like, okay, but be honest with your partner. Obviously, you have to tell them. I hope you've told them by now, and they'll probably find it funny. And it's just it's kind of, that's a funny reason to feel guilt, in my opinion. Just be like, shit, I broke my partner's foot in the funniest way possible.
Wow.
I think my bullshit answer would be raise the stakes and poop next time and see
There
if
we
she
go.
notices.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
oh my god. I think maybe we might have said that. I think you just unlocked a memory about that episode. Maybe we said that. I don't know. Who knows?
So I know this has been a bit on the longer side, but are you
That's
ready
what happens
for?
when you put two podcasters together.
Yeah,
Of
honestly.
course. No, I was on a Juggalo podcast not that long ago, and the episode ran for 4 hours. So we
Oh my
were
God,
just
yeah.
Incredible.
the whole time about Juggalo shit.
We really don't like put a limit on, like I tend to edit these down just a little bit, but like at the end of the day, the more open these conversations could be, the more like, sometimes it takes us 15 minutes to get to the most meat and potatoes part of it. I'd rather just let it rock.
Right.
Yeah. I think there's also something you said that I think these kinds of conversations are I don't think that the kind of person who would be interested in a conversation like this would probably be interested in all the kind of areas we've gone into. I don't think that there's like that someone's going to be like listening.
Oh, this is 2 hours, so we're not.
Yeah, like
gonna
someone's gonna get
Exactly.
part of a way, and so it's like you have lost my interest. Like if someone, I think if the kind of person who's going to be invested in the journey that we've went on conversationally, I think it's kind of in for a penny, in for a pound.
So
For sure.
for the 11 of you who stuck around, thank you
Exactly.
so much.
Exactly. Yeah, no, at the end of the 4-hour Juggalo podcast I was on, I was like, if there are any Flatsound fans listening, at this point, thank you so fucking much. And a lot of them were just like, I made it all the way through. And I was like, I don't know how. You're not even a juggalo. Like, how did you listen to us talk for that long? But yeah, I don't know. Podcasts are comforting, and I'm sure people would just like to listen to it in chunks, a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there.
Yeah, exactly.
While they're completing merch orders and not streaming it.
There you go. Yeah, perfect.
Exactly.
So, Mitch, Mr. Flatsound, are you ready for the question round?
The question round.
First question: what is your phone background?
Ooh, okay. It is I wish it were something cute, like it was still a picture of Billy or something like that. I want to see if I could just show it to you just so I can describe it. It's just this like abstract color thing there. It's not loading. There you go.
Oh, that's cool.
Interesting.
And I actually bought it. I bought the phone background from an artist on Etsy. I've never like purchased a phone background before, but I was like, I feel like spending money and giving it to an artist. Let's see.
That's
Somebody
awesome. That's
kinda
made this for their
interesting.
phone, and I was like, oh, that's adorable. I've been rocking that for like the past month or so, probably.
Cute.
That's awesome.
Love that. Do you have a non-musical hobby?
Gosh. Other than, I mean, are video games a hobby? Video games take up a big thing in my brain. Non-musical, non-audio, non-anything like that. I really enjoy playing hacky sack.
Oh, nice.
Hacky sack. I'm quite good at it. I could knock that
That's
thing
awesome.
around like crazy.
Yeah, I can only really do like a single hack. That's the unit of hacky sacky measurement, right?
One hack.
A single hack.
Right. Is there a skill that you would like to have?
I'd like to know other languages. I would like to become better at coding too.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Which is also a language.
Yeah, there you go. I want to
It all
learn many
falls
different
under the same
languages.
umbrella.
Yeah.
If I were to grade my ability to code
Oh no.
right now, I would give myself a C++.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
I would give myself a Python, which is not a good unit of grade,
No.
but I think I just want a Python.
That's close to failing actually, but it just sounds cool. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Python is a really bad grade.
If my ability to code was a pitch, it'd be C#.
Oh God.
Okay.
And I got to think of some coding software, something to be like, I'm as smart as
If
you
my
guys.
ability to code was a cup of coffee.
Okay, there we go.
JavaScript.
JavaScript. There we go. At least I
Yeah,
caught
yeah,
that
yeah.
one before it was coming.
Yeah.
If my ability to code was a series of letters, it would be HTML.
Whoa.
God damn. I can't even. I don't even know what to do with this.
Yeah, HTML is actually short for help teach my language.
Whoa. That your brain works on. You're just on X Games mode over there. It's like you two are connected by the ear right now because they can't see that, but it's one earbud connected to the both of you, and it feels like they're almost just like one conjoined twin that hate each other. You know?
that tends to be the case.
Well, I'm sure, again, podcasting chemistry is a world unto itself. We've been riffing with each other for 6 years.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So I feel like that just comes out in the wash.
Oh.
This is the most important question on
Yes,
the
yes,
podcast,
yes.
though. Are you ready for
Are
it?
you
I'm
ready
ready.
for
I'm
it?
stretching.
This is the most important.
Let's get it.
I think we should try another ping pong. Ready?
Okay.
Would
You
be
a
pirate.
Would I be a pirate? No, I would never survive.
There we go.
I'm weak. I'm small. I'd get scurvy like right away.
Yeah.
I'd like to be a space pirate.
There we go.
Ooh, that is pretty cool. Space scurvy though, you don't want to get
No,
that.
Yo,
no.
you definitely don't want
That's
space.
the worst
scurvy.
kind.
You think the lack of vitamin C is bad on the sea?
Yeah, there's
Imagine
no
in
way that you're
space.
gonna get
Yeah.
enough when it's just you and the fucking moon. There's no way.
Yeah. You got to worry about vitamin D too when you're up in space.
Oh God, where's
Because you
this
don't
gone?
really see the sun.
Exactly.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
You thought I was gonna make a pun. Oh man, not today. Not today, Captain.
Wow.
My brain's a black hole. I don't know. Do you have any tattoos? And if so, what was your first?
I have absolutely no tattoos on my body.
That's awesome.
None
Would
at all.
you, if you were to have one, what would it be?
I wanted a lot when I was younger. I didn't get into this at all on the show just because it's a story that's been told 1,000 times. And it's like, yeah, if it comes up naturally, then sure. But from when I was 18 for 10 solid years, I was aggressively agoraphobic. And meaning I didn't leave the house. The reason that I reference like my therapist, blah, 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 it's the same therapist I've had for the last 7 years because I completely I'm a recovering agoraphobe. Like it was a 10-year span of me. When I say I didn't leave the house, I mean I didn't just not like to leave the house. I didn't see the inside of a grocery store. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't do anything. That's how Flatsound built up its thing. I spent all that time writing. I've written hundreds of songs because I really wasn't doing much else. It was battling mental illness while also doing Flatsound when I could, while also seeking help, while not getting that help, and then just staying there for a long time. I'm so much better than I was. I still have a lot of work to do, but Billy's helped me so much. My therapist has helped me so much. And I'm doing better now than I ever have. But because of that, when I was the age where I would have just been covered in tattoos, I was at home. I didn't have access to it. And then I feel like I missed that gap where I got a lot of like regrettable tattoos, because if not for that, I would just have so many. And I think that's one of the silver linings too, that I'm just kind of like, I would have hated that tattoo at this age. Like I would have that would have sucked that was such a dumb idea I had when I was 18. Like that was, I'm so glad I didn't do that.
What was it? What was the idea?
I had a ton of like, I think I just wanted a lot of just like minimal, just like big pieces on me. A lot of just like blackout work or something. And I'm just like, why the fuck would I do that? Like I'm the exact type of person who would absolutely hate that today, but I'm also like a completely different person from 18 or a teenager than being 18 and then 10 years later into the agoraphobia. Just two vastly different people. One liked partying and drinking and going out, and the other one is now just, I'm so used to being a homebody that I'm just kind of like, I think I'm okay. I would just want to settle down,
I'd be the thing is I don't have any tattoos either, but I would be the one to ask for a handwritten lyric. So I've always been like, okay, I know that I need to like know for sure which one it is before I like reach out to an artist or like whatever about it, because it's obviously a very strange kind of request. Though we love it, when we get it every once in a while, for the right people. I have two questions about the agoraphobia, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, I've spoken about it like so much in my life. It doesn't make me uncomfortable or anything.
The first is, was there something when you were 18 that like triggered it, or was it something that kind of like came up like over time? And then my second question is, has being in lockdown in through like COVID and all that been helpful, because it's like, oh, now everybody's kind of experiencing what I've gone through, or has it been an extra challenge to your like recovery on that side?
I always like to say that I was agoraphobic for years before it confined me to my home. I had a lot of agoraphobic tendencies, a lot of avoidance, a lot of because I have a panic disorder. That's my official condition is PDA. It's panic disorder and agoraphobia. And those having the two of them, it's like the conditions are different sides of the same coin. So I had the panic disorder and I had the agoraphobic tendencies, but it didn't actually confine me to my home until I was about 18 years old. And that happened kind of all at once. It wasn't one thing. It was always the avoidance, and it kind of, I saw it coming for a long time, and then it just hit me like a fucking train. All at once, I woke up one day and it just, it was almost like a ringing in my head that wouldn't stop, And I was just like, I don't know what's happening. I have no idea what this is, and was confused with it for the first few months, learned kind of what it was, and always thought, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. And then the first year hits, the second year hits, the third year hits, and you're just like, what the fuck happened to my life? Like what is this? And it got bad. And then started, that's sort of, I appreciate Flatsound so much. I appreciate the listeners so much, because like there were many years of that project existing where I couldn't even afford groceries. So affording therapy was completely out of the question. But since I started going to therapy, I pay without insurance. I talk to my therapist. I'm using Flatsound money to do it. Flatsound helped me get my life back when I had nothing, when I didn't have food, when I didn't have I used Flatsound money to take care of my dad. Like it gave me everything. But no,
is your dad okay?
My dad passed away a year ago.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. What happened?
He had a COPD for years and years. And right before the pandemic, some months before, it was November 2019, he passed pretty unexpectedly. And he was living with me forever. I took care of him from the moment I could. I was taking care of him, which is not to say that he was like confined to a wheelchair and he was super old. He rocked my whole childhood. He was the strongest fucking person. Even in his fucking 70s, he was outside gardening and lifting heavy things and stuff like that. I'm like, bro, you need to slow down. You have a lung condition, you know? But that's my proudest achievement in Flatsound. It's not the tattoos. It's not anything like that. It was taking care of dad using Flatsound money. I used to give him $1,000. I would give him $1,000 for his birthday every year. Boom. You know? And that started because one year I didn't know what to get him. And I was like just starting to do good with Flatsound, you know? Like those paychecks a month started to look pretty good. And he was like, I don't want anything, because that's just who he was. It's also who he raised me to be too. I'm like, no, I don't want gifts at all. But I was like, okay, how about whatever this was iTunes at the time, because that was the thing that was actually paying me the most money. Whatever my iTunes check is this month, you could just have it. And he's like, yeah, okay. And he's expecting it to be like, you know, like $100 or something like that. And and I got it, and it was like $1,000. It was the first time I'd made $1,000 that month, and I was like, this rules. And I sent it to him. And he flipped, like he completely flipped. He's like, no. And I was like, use it, whatever. So yeah, he passed away a year and some change ago. And it's very, very easy for me to say it was the worst thing that's ever happened to me. You know, that guitar in the background right there, he gave to me. I started Flatsound because he gave me that guitar when I was 16 years old. And I turned that into a fucking music career that took care of him in his retirement years. I'll never get more proud than that. That's the peak, you know.
Well,
that's the peak proudness.
we all imagine, you know, that this creative thing is gonna save us, but like you've had this opportunity to have it literally save you and literally like have an impact in a clear way. I think that's really, really special. But also
rolls.
like
It rolls.
I feel you, man. Like I hope you're doing all right with all of that, and I'm really impressed with you. Like I think that
Thank you, man.
The fact
Thank you so much.
that you carry yourself in a way where it's like you don't ignore the stuff that's gone on around you, but it hasn't been like a thing that's brought you down or like defined you. Like it's really inspiring, I think. And
I think that these things that do happen, they're horrible, first of all. You know, I swing back and forth between saying like, you know, it's just life experience, and I still love my life. Like I love my life. I love everything about my life. And that's probably due to the years and years of therapy, because I used to wake up in the middle of the night and just have these like night terrors and would just freak out and just start. I'd be like, I can't believe I'm agoraphobic. I can't believe my whole life, like it feels like I died. It feels like my life ended years ago, and I can't even do what happened to my brain. And I get so angry about it. And it would just be the first thought. And I just start punching shit and just feeling like this is not my life. Like this didn't happen to me. And through years of therapy, I wouldn't trade the agoraphobia for anything. Are you kidding me? My job rules. My relationship with people rules. Being confined to your home, it gives you this better understanding of how to navigate relationships. All the relationships that I were in started with this deep sense, this really steady foundation of communication. You know, you have to be able to talk to somebody while they're not there and really get a good sense of who they are before you invite them into your life. Was a very personal thing, you know, for a person to come into my life. And I've had beautiful relationships as a result. I had a great relationship with my dad that I kind of go back and forth, because I don't look at his death and say, well, that was actually good in the end. It's like, no, that was only bad. That sucked.
Right.
Right. But it was just, it's just a tragedy. It's a fucking car accident. You know, it's something that happens that is unfair. And, you can only be grateful for what you did before that time. And then you spend a whole year and you just cry and cry and cry and try and just remember like his guitar, all the shit that he taught me. I have in my living room in the coffee table, it's like this display, kind of like a what are they called? Like a shadow box display as a coffee table, so you can put, you know, shit inside of me. And it's the first Fostex 4-track recorder that he ever got me.
Oh, wow.
And that got me into, and you know, all the buttons are just mashed because I used the shit out of that thing. And I recorded like Scotland on that thing. I recorded I Clunked You on that thing. I used it a lot. And without that, without all this other shit, without a guitar, I would have nothing. I would be a completely different person. I wouldn't be me. And without his help during the beginning stages of the agoraphobia, we traded off the baton of taking care of each other seamlessly. It was him when I was a kid, and I was his last kid, and he had been having kids since the 70s. So he was 75 when he passed. And
how many siblings do you have?
I only have one full brother. He had like multiple families, the guy, But I have one full brother. I have a half sister. Shout out Steph. She's so close to me, and then a bunch of other family that I don't really talk to that much.
Got you.
Yeah, but some siblings are in there.
It is interesting what you said, though. My mom, I had a terrible family tragedy happen a couple of years ago, which actually it was the anniversary of about 2 days ago.
Oh, wow.
And I remember one of the anniversaries, I sort of stumbled upon this line of thinking where I was trying to sort of like figure out because there's a lot of sort of mystery around what happened. So I'm like, well, if it had gone this way or it had gone that way. And I called my mom just like panicking and crying and stuff. And she's, I'm like, I can't choose which like version of this makes me feel better or whatever. And she's like, Nate, like there's no good way to look at a tragedy.
It just like, happened. Yeah.
It just happens. And like, it is okay to not have to like rationalize it. It's okay to not like, it's okay to see it for what it is, as opposed to trying to like solve it. And that was really a really profound thing. And I hear it in your voice, like that same kind of like wisdom, like hard-earned wisdom of how to view that kind of stuff,
Right. It really like I used to think a lot too. I was like, I haven't really experienced loss that much. Like, I don't know, like I've had some friends that have died, but like my dad's still around. He's dope as shit. He's fucking, I don't know, like siblings of anything like that. And I'm not like really that close to my family. I still have my best friend and stuff. I'm like, that's pretty good. That's cool. And I always knew this thing would be the thing that killed Dad. I just didn't think, I thought I had years and years left. And that same type, it just toughens you in a way that you don't expect. It makes you numb in a way that's probably for the best, because I would fear death like crazy, and then I would look at my own life in perspective of like what I've accomplished and stuff, and then after that you're just like, yeah, we're here and then we're not, and then who fucking cares, like we're here, and that's not in a bad way. I mean, like, we're here and then we're not, and I'm grateful. And then I look at what happened and I'm like, Dad died. Good for him. He suffered throughout those last however long, and good for him because he wasn't afraid either. And that's fucking more than I could say. He also, like, I had a good relationship with him. Like, so many of my friends don't have good relationships with their dads, if a buddy of mine lost his dad tomorrow, he'll go the rest of his life being like, I didn't get to tell him that I loved him. It's like, I told my dad I loved him every fucking day, every day I told him I loved him.
We're lucky, we're in the end, it's all just time anyway. Like, we're lucky for the time, and especially if that time is meaningful. Like, my grandparents are in good shape, and I'm so grateful for that. Like, hell, my grandfather skis, but I grew up very close to them. They have always meant a whole lot to me. But I know that time is limited. I don't know by how much, but I know that time is limited. Yeah. So yeah, we drove into a ditch. But like, hell, if like, I don't know, if things had been a little bit worse, if I had like hurt myself, whatever.
Right. Yeah. If you hit like a patch of black ice, if something happened, if you took a fucking right instead of a left, it would have.
Right. But part of me was sort of like, yeah, if obviously I didn't want the people in my car to have died or whatever, but there was sort of this part of the back of my head that was like, that wouldn't have felt like a waste to me, to see my grandparents, to spend the limited time that we have, it didn't feel, none of it felt frivolous, it felt like appreciating the time when we have it, very happy nobody was hurt. And
of course.
Yeah, I cosmically would have been pissed. I'm like, I haven't even met these people. I've died for them. Like, what?
Yeah. I would have been like, they're not my fucking grandparents. Why would I?
But I just mean to say, like, sort of broadly.
What was the first concert you ever attended?
Let's see. I mean, I grew up in like San Diego, so I don't really want to say like it was like Switchfoot playing outside or something somewhere. So
right.
Like somewhere in Oceanside. But the first concert that I actually attended on purpose was at the Che Cafe here in San Diego, which is a famous little DIY venue on the college campus of SDSU, I think so. But it was seeing some like Saddle Creek artists. It was Tilly and the Wall and Now It's Overhead play live, and I really was excited to go. I I lied about where I was to go because I was only like 16 and I maybe 15 years old. And I wasn't into going to shows when I was like younger, I think because of the agoraphobic tendencies, you know, I was still going out and doing a bunch of like weird fuck shit all the time. But for some reason, going to concerts was always really like overwhelming to me. But I was like, I really want to see Tilly and the Wall live. So I saw them at the Che Cafe and it ruled. But I still have never gone in my life to like a proper like to a concert that people have like heard of. It was always like local acts, DIY bands, friends bands, or sometimes we would go to Soma, which is a local venue, and just go side stage whoever was performing that night.
I was gonna say that this is probably the most indie answer we've ever gotten, like the most like off the beaten path. Like most of the time it's like the Cheetah Girls or
right.
Like the Grateful Dead cover band or like whatever, you know. So very impressive.
All right, this is a cruel question, but it's an important question.
Okay.
What is your favorite movie, favorite book, and favorite TV show?
I would like to say You and Me and Everyone We Know movie by Miranda July.
By Miranda July.
By Miranda July.
Yeah.
We just watched Kajillionaire.
Oh, cool. I love Miranda's work. She's just great. Seeing that movie when I was like 15 years old, I was like, I want to be pretentious. This is cool. Like I would like to be a pretentious person. This is really, really cool. Like I seriously just her exact brand of just like
it's aspirational.
It was so cool to me, and it just like got me into just like indie work, you know, indie fucking everything, and I was like, wow. That's dope. That's so cool, and I've been a fan of hers ever since.
Yeah, we love Kajillionaire to the point where we just put every Miranda July movie on our watch list. We had known about her because we followed her on Instagram.
Oh, cool.
She's like an incredible performance artist on Instagram.
Yes, she is.
And she had this really cool interaction with Margaret Qualley, like this sort of beautiful, almost like multimedia short film love story with Margaret Qualley.
Yeah.
That played out parasocially. But yeah, she's super cool. That's on. We haven't seen that, but that's extremely on our list.
Oh, you need to check it out. It's so good. It's super, super good. Book, this is what I always say, but I do mean it from the bottom of my heart. Behind the Paint, the autobiography by Joseph Bruce, aka Violent J of the Insane Clown Posse.
Nice.
This thing is my Bible. It's as thick as the goddamn Bible. It's like 600 pages long. When I was in the 8th grade, I just like read it. And I'm not, listen, any fans out there listening either of your podcast or of my music or anything like that, please don't feel inclined to check it out. There's a lot of problematic shit in it. It was written a long time ago by a shock rock rap group from Detroit. Keep that in mind. I'm always saying keep that in mind. It was a different era in a completely different genre. There's some shit in there that doesn't translate well, you know?
Right.
That's been addressed since then, obviously, but still, sometimes I get some fans who are just like, I tried to get into ICP because you love him so much, and this is really problematic, Mitch. I was like, well, you have to understand, it's the Insane Clown Posse. It's the Insane Clown Posse. So I'm so sorry if I give the impression that they're wholesome in some way. They are in many ways, and as people, they're great. Their music, their content is, oh my gosh. And their life and growing up and stuff. Oh boy, any rapper from that era, gosh. But I love the book. I've read it a couple times when I was younger, had a physical copy of it, and then they released an audiobook version a few years ago. And this thing is like over 24 hours of recorded audio. And it's just Violent J talking and going on these tangents and stuff, because he recorded it it was like 10 years after the book was written. So he had a lot of notes about it. Oh, since then this happened. Oh, and then since then I eat it up. I'll put it on and I'll just start to fill merch orders, because their come up story is the most inspirational thing in the world to me. I'm so inspired by them in particular to how I run merchandise and the grind to actually do something on your own and to get those plays up, and to, you know, if these men could make the Insane Clown Posse work for them, then you can make your project work, you know, if you work hard enough. And they worked hard every single day.
Favorite show?
Just for how long I had watched it when I was younger, maybe Good Eats.
Oh, interesting. Cool,
Good
cool,
Eats, yeah.
Cool. Do you have a scar with a story?
Yeah, I got a lot actually. I fucking knocked the back of my head, got a big scar back there. It's not too big, but the biggest scar that I have here is on my forearm. It ranges from here to here. I got that giant scar, and that's from surgery that I had when I was younger. It's always so hard to make like music as sad as I do, and then I walk around with a fucking scar like that because people are just like, "Oh, where did that come from?" It's like, that's surgery, actually. That one.
I was like, I'm not gonna assume. Just let him tell him where it's from, Nate. You know?
No, there's a metal plate underneath it. It's it's fine. But yeah, that's my favorite scar. It's big, it's beautiful. It runs all the way up my arm. I got it when I was in the 8th grade having surgery. I broke my arm a handful of times, like when I was younger, skating and doing stuff like that. Until eventually my body was like, "Hey, sports, they're not for you, dude. So stop."
Right.
And then I had one last thing in it where they were like, "We're just going to correct it. We're just going to put a metal plate in it forever. It'll get really sore during the winter time for the rest of your life." And I'm like, "Okay, thank you."
That's really funny.
I think that's how I settled on biking, because I have a scar from every other sport.
Right.
Every other mobile sport. It's like from like skiing and skateboarding and like whatever. I'm like, biking has never hurt me.
Yeah, it seems pretty like low risk, especially. I mean, like you're into like cycling, right? So that's just you're just zooming, man. That's cool. Yeah, you're not going off any like crazy jumps or anything like that to break your arm.
This is a fun question. What are 3 thoughts you have at this very moment?
Oh God. What am I gonna have for dinner?
Nice.
Let's see. I wonder if Billy is still awake. And I guess I'm always just kind of thinking about mixing in the background of my mind. I'm like wrapping up a release right now, and it's at the stages where it's done, but I just have to like listen to it for a week to be like, is my opinion changing on it? So in the back of my mind is always like, is that transition good? Does that transition nicely? Does it go? So I'm just like, stop.
That's fun. And lastly, to close it all out, what are you looking forward to?
Smash with you guys.
Nice.
Hey,
and
likewise.
Also the like I said, I started working with Zach to take on a more managerial role with what I do. So I'm looking forward to the rest of the year. I'm really pleased with my Spotify plays right now. I'm really happy with them. But when I was on the phone with Zach recently, I was just like, I don't ever want to do too much. And he's just like, you'll change your life maybe 5%, but you'll get way more than a 5% growth in what you do. And I specifically told him like, I feel so lucky because I feel like the algorithm has always been so good to me. And he was like, the algorithm's not been good to you yet. The algorithm it exists currently and it's doing what it's supposed to, but you have not actually, it's not been good to you yet. You've not seen it good yet, and you will see it if we do these things that we're about to do. So first time in my life right now, I'm like planning releases ahead. I'm going to put out a single. I'm going to do a second single and then the album and then have the vinyl ready right then. And then do another EP after that. And then shop around for labels for the full length to do a 2-year contract to see if anybody's interested. So I get to retain and do that as an investment. I'm excited to see where this goes, actually trying that route, because so far it's only just been,
you've been able to accomplish so much. Just it seems like not trying, and I think that's really empowering.
Yeah,
and exciting.
But I also think that's like, it's funny. Yeah, that sort of false sense. Like we've tried to play on the algorithm, and we've seen how far we can go when we are aiming for it, and then still get ignored or still like whatever, and to the point where we reach the same conclusion. Oh, let's get a label on this next release, but also, we were able to be like, oh, we tried this and it didn't work. This is why we need a label. Whereas for you, it's like, oh yeah, things are working out. And then somebody comes along and they're like, no, but it could be this.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh,
he was like, let's turn this to 3 times that amount per month. And I was like, I don't deserve that. And he's like, but you can have that, and you can have he wants me to have a retirement fund and wants me to build a nest egg. And then I'm forming an LLC for Flatsound this year. Gonna actually be on a payroll, and then have Billy also as hired as an employee when she moves here and all that stuff. And I was like, as long as y'all handle it, like then I'm gonna continue being me online, and that's cool. So I'm really excited to see where that goes, because I'm not stopping making art. I do it all of the time. But to focus on like how to do that in a way that can, because the way I see it, the way that I release things, people just, they either hear it or they don't. And if they don't, that's kind of my own fault, because I'll work a long time on an album and then I'll just pick a day randomly and be like, hey, by the way, this is a new album. It's on Spotify right now. And then I'll never talk about it again. And then sometimes things do really great. Sometimes things do only okay, but they usually do okay. I should aim for higher than that, because I do feel extremely lucky that Flatsound has, that you've even heard of Flatsound, that people come to me and they're like, it's changed my life. I've had like family hit me up and say, my coworker's daughter was wondering if for her birthday gift she can speak to you on the phone. And I'm just like, that's really, yes, of course she can talk to me on the phone. That's really, it's so bizarre to me, because to me, I was agoraphobic. I didn't tour or anything. I didn't play shows. I didn't do anything like that. I didn't do meet and greets. I didn't do anything. In my head, I'm always trying to push against the idea that you put an artist like me on a pedestal, that you look up to me in some unrealistic way. I want us to play video games together. I want to say, I really appreciate you, but let's keep this, first of all, appropriate. If you're like, if you're 16, don't talk to me. Like that's just the, like, it sounds so mean. And I used to get this thing on Tumblr all the time, from people that are like, Mitch doesn't like teenagers. Like, wouldn't it be weirder if I did? Like, what the fuck? Yes, I don't really like talking to teenagers. We have nothing in common and it feels weird. So I'm always like, let's put an age limit on the Discord. Not that we're talking about anything adult. I mean, we're talking about like drugs and drinking and stuff, but like 16, 15, none of that, please. And not everybody understands that, but they don't have to understand it. It's fine. But yeah, looking forward to things the rest of the year, just to see how the plays go. Cause I am really, really proud that, I'm at hovering just under 500,000 monthly listeners. And I don't know what to tell people other than like, wow, that's crazy. Thank you. Like I've not really done anything, but haven't stopped, and I'm not going to stop anytime soon. So hopefully with some help that grows even further, because if I could just double that, it's an inconceivable amount of money for me. It's absolutely inconceivable, As I get older, the business aspect of what I do and wanting to like retain it in another 10 years, like being an artist, continuing to be an artist, is more and more relevant. It's just more tantalizing in my mind to just be like, wouldn't it be weird or cool if it didn't go away? And if you bought a house soon, if you owned property, and then you can still do music, you could still be creative, you can still, and then I'm just vastly influenced by all of the, like a juggalo rap group, Twisted. As I was approaching 30, I was like listening to some of their stuff I listened to when I was in middle school, realizing that I was like, wait a second, what do you say in that lyric? That can't be right. Let me Google that. He was 30 when the Green Book came out? That's great. That's an early release for them. They're still touring and doing shit like that today. They just dropped their last album last year. They've done consistent releases. Man, 30's the fucking beginning. Like, I can't believe that. All that shit was practice. Like, I need to get some shit going now. And I feel like I'm right there. I just need to take advantage of it. And I fully intend to, and I'm crossing my fingers. Because as far as business and stuff goes, my best friend, Jordan, his dad, who was friends with my dad, he told me something just recently, and it was his like first time coming over to my house, like a year or so back. I went away. I stopped seeing him for 10 years. I came back, and I live in this house, and I was renting this house for my dad so he could live with me but not feel like he was living on top of me or not feel like a burden. The house is much bigger than what I need. It's a 5-bedroom. In fucking Southern California. It's ridiculous. I'm paying way too much rent. But Jordan's dad came over, and he's a businessman, and he was like, son of a bitch, Mitch, how are you doing all this? And I was like, yeah, Flatsound's doing great, and he was so pissed at me immediately because he saw my merch room and he's like, why is this stock low? And I go, it's always low. And he was like, you run out? And I was like, I run out all the time for months. And he was like, never run out, never ever do, think ahead, do this, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't know, blah, blah. And I told him specifically that I was like, I feel really lucky for having everything that I have. I mean, I know that I work hard, and I definitely work hard, and I've been doing it for a long time, but I just still feel very lucky for everything. And he said that his dad used to say this, and I still think about it every day. His dad said something to the effect of like, luck is just where hard work and opportunity intersect.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you just have to continue trying, and then eventually you get those breaks, but you're not going to get that opportunity that you've gotten without the work that you've done. So sometimes you do get those breaks. Yeah.
My grandfather gets mad at me when I say that we got lucky about something. Mm-hmm. He was like, I will tell you the 5 things you did to make that thing happen.
Right.
And, it's not like, and he won't be the first person to be like effusive, but like, yeah, he says the same thing. Is like, you make your luck,
Mm-hmm.
But we're excited to see where you go. We're excited to play Smash Bros with you.
I can't wait for that in particular.
To have new friends. We started this podcast for everybody to understand that there's a community here, that we're all sort of going through similar things. Mm-hmm. And we've made so many great friends through this podcast, in the artist community. And so we're just really, really grateful that you're on, man. And
thank you guys so much for having me.
I just can't wait for everything that's to come. And hey, if you and Billy will ever have us, we're happy to answer the questions of your people as well.
Given just how you guys record, we'll have you on fucking anytime, because that's like the biggest thing that's the biggest thing that stands in the way for us, is just been, well, who do we have on that can actually be on the show during these times? Because it's not, it's pretty much nobody. And we just hit, recently we had 100 episodes. So, weekly, that's 2 years of the show. And we started saying past episode 100, we can start having guests on the show. I had this recurring bit that she was actually just a guest on the show that we would have every episode. Hey guys, she's back. And for the 100th episode, I formally asked her to be my co-host. And
that's really cute.
So after that, we're like, well, we can start having guests now, So we would love a guest on the show soon for sure.
We'd be happy to do it. We started this thinking we were going to interview 5 of our friends and then run out of people who were going to be on it. So we would just riff with each other or whatever. And I think you're the 60 something person that we've had.
That's
and we've been
so
doing this for,
dope. That's so
a year
dope.
and a half or whatever. So it's been really, hey, that's how it goes. So we would be happy to be on. But Mitch, it's so nice to meet you. Thank you
Lovely
for
to meet
being
you.
on, and looking forward to everything that's to come.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It was a blast.
And all I want is to find myself in anyone. And I wonder if you're having fun in that empty space where we used to talk.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Talking Lion.
We would like to thank New Wave, The Truffleist, and Isotope for their support of Talking Lion.
If you'd like to show your support, ask our guests your questions, talk to us on Discord, and get a shout out at the end of each episode, subscribe to our Patreon over at patreon.com/talkinglion.
Thank you for listening, and see you next time.